Amsterdam Film Festival, speak of that, you said something that I thought was quite funny, so your name's obviously Sam Jolley.
Yes, as I'm surprised you didn't realise before.
Yeah, no, I think I did.
No, I'm not surprised, sorry, as in I was just like, I didn't realise you hadn't clocked the surname before.
I think I had, but I think at that point in time, I just didn't know you as well, so I wasn't as forward in my excitement about it.
Sure.
I think now that I know you, I immediately was like, oh my God, that's... Whereas I think when I met you, I was like, I'm a grown man, I can't get excited about this guy's last name. But, and you said to me, Jolley by name, Jolley by nature.
Yeah.
And it did make, and I'm not just saying this because it kind of leads into what I was wanting to ask you, like, you do have a very positive kind of disposition, if you will, or you're just a positive person. Do you, like, do you know where that comes from, or, like, are your mom and dad quite like that?
Oh, that is a deep-rooted question there.
Yeah.
Am I in therapy right now?
I mean, if we work it out, maybe.
Yeah, we'll work it out.
Add it to my CV, therapist.
Yeah.
Podcast host /
exactly.
therapist.
Yeah, why not? I'd happily vouch for you on that one. That's a really good question that might take a hell of a lot of tangents
That's what
I don't even know are 100% sure, or, you know what, let's just see where this goes. Not sure. It was always I don't know. It's a good question. I like it. I just don't know where to start.
Is your family quite...
with it.
Do you feel like you're like your family? Like, are your family all quite positive people? 'Cause I would say the characteristics I have, I see them in my mum and dad are very different, and I obviously am like a kind of manifestation of the two. Whereas my sister, one of my sisters specifically, I can see that her and I are very similar in our... Yeah. And probably because we're similar in ages, similar in...
Sure.
You know, the nature-nurture side of things, where we grew up in the same place at the same time with the same people.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of...
And then you also see, like, people who are crazy and their family's crazy, and you're like, okay, I see where this comes from.
You're like, this puts two and two together to a degree. Yeah, like, My mum and dad are two very different people. I grew up predominantly with my mum and my brother. So my parents separated before I was able to remember, so to speak, since like 18 months old, give or take. And it's probably coming from my mum's side. Like, she is arguably one of the most positive people and has been through some absolute shit, unfortunately, which could delve down into later into that's just potentially shaped more my attitude in more recent times. But it was more like, my mum just hits everything so well. She had to deal with two kids on her own. Like, it was always, it's not like she would shield anything from us. Like, we knew we were very much realists, but she would still want to do that natural protect side of things. But it was always in a kind of positive, always find the positive in the potential, I don't want to say negative, but where it could end up going in that direction. If we were going all the way sort of back there, you know, it's one of those things you could go into a bit deeper, and I'll probably end up flitting back and forth, because then if you go a bit further into like my adolescent teenage stage, I was not a positive person. I know we're all teenagers, you know, hormones, everything like that, but I was a very, very anxious teenager, for reasons one or another. And it was a tough time at that point. But then you know, being those ages, you're never sure what you're doing, what you're kind of knowing. Everyone's trying to figure out what's going on in life, figuring out life itself. So that was kind of a turning point, coming out of secondary school, out of college, and then going to kind of university was kind of a little bit of a shift, a really good shift considering where I was in my kind of mid-teens. Just think, you know, anxiety ridden, didn't go to school for a month or two.
Oh, wow.
Because I remember it now. It's one of those things when you're able to, I feel, when you can look back on something, you can laugh it off, you know, to a degree, but it's also used as a learning experience. irrespective of what age you were or what it is kind of you were doing at the time or what you were experiencing at the time. And it was literally down to a friend of mine. Again, this is just going to make me laugh. A friend of mine getting some Jaffa cakes stuck in his braces and throwing up. Like, for a good while, I hated the idea of being sick. It made me feel sick, and maybe it's the cusp of a little something else. But yeah, then it was this. Let's call it a cascade of issues. Then that kind of did that for this when I was probably 13, something like that. And then that was like, if there was like a low, that was kind of from my personal memory. That was it. So I remember then going to the doctors, and they wanted to prescribe me with antidepressants, but I didn't want to do that. There was something maybe there that kind of had me thinking that was like, you know what? Why should I have to take some medication to alter the way that I may be thinking about things? And it felt like something then kind of changed. I remember being there with my mum, and she was like, look, we don't have to do this now. This is, this is just completely, this is what they've spoken about. And that's sort of the thing they went to. And my mum didn't agree with it either. But, true to her nature of you do what is best for you, I'm here to support. It was kind of one of those where it was like, you know what? No, I don't think that, and again, I don't want to take it away from those that do need to use medication to manage any kind of depression, anxiety, and things like that. I'm not dismissing any of it, and it can be a very powerful tool to help those that really need the help. But in that moment, I was like, I think I can kind of get over this hurdle by just kind of trying to think my way through it. And I'm a notorious overthinker. Even to this day, a notorious overthinker without necessarily always showing it. But I end up trying to go through at least like 3 or 4 different scenarios within a scenario to just make myself prepared for like the outcome, so to speak. But yeah, like that, I remember that. And it was kind of one of those moments. And then I didn't really transpire properly then probably to uni, where you become a bit more of an adult. You have free reign, and I feel like there's going to be a lot of sound bites and cliches. I'm not here for it, so I'm going to apologize straight off the bat. But I'd say kind of one of the things to kind of take, like, I've got a question for you. Did you ever have that question, or did you have where someone's gone like, what's your what is it? I actually hate it. Like, what's that one, or that's like one interesting fact, but they don't call it that. It's something else, and I can't remember what it is.
Like about you as a person?
Yeah, or like one interesting fact about you. And I remember doing it was something. Yeah, there's a word. There's this kind of terminology that they use for it, and it's somewhere in the back of my head that has just come. No. I can't remember either. This is going to really, really bug me.
So is it like someone saying, tell me something interesting?
Yeah. Let's do it as that. Yeah. It's like a round table, like, here, tell me one interesting thing about you. I remember going to straight after uni, going to a random job interview, and it was like a big group, and everyone's like saying these things. Yeah. So weird. But anyway, there is that something thing. But if I was to ask you, what's one like thing that people wouldn't necessarily know? Like, what's one interesting thing? Or if you like, I can start with it to give you kind of what I mean.
I think I know what you mean. I would probably say, if someone was to ask me now, I'd probably say
icebreaker.
Icebreaker?
Yeah, sorry. Right, yeah, there we go. An icebreaker. It means, you know what I mean, though, when they have like an icebreaker. Yeah, sorry.
I probably wouldn't actually say this, but just to give an example, I probably could say like, I do a podcast.
Yeah.
I wouldn't ever lead with that, because I think I'm still a little bit shy about some.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shy?
When it comes to I think just because the whole podcasting, I'm a little bit shy. But if someone was to say, tell me an icebreaker, I don't know, I'd probably come up with something.
Come on, you gotta give me something now. I'm giving you one.
Okay. I can start with mine if you want.
Yeah, a little bit more time to think.
Yeah.
But like, if ever someone who sort of says, it's not something I would necessarily say otherwise, but it's just a fun little thing that I will add in, because there's no contextually, otherwise it's not something you just say. It's like when they say, how do you know when someone's done an ultra marathon? They'll tell you. Right?
Yeah.
That's not it, but you know what I mean? Though, like, like completely out of context. Just, did you know I ran over 50k? But no, the thing, see if you get what I mean.
I'm laughing,
right?
because that's what I was thinking. I was like, should I say that I've done that?
But you are, because it's that type of thing, right? Where you kind of adding that to that maybe shapes like the personality that you are. Mine is that the first time I ever went on a plane, I jumped out of it.
Oh yeah. You told me that.
We may have spoken about this before.
Sorry. Yeah,
no, you don't have to apologize.
That's very cool though. Like that would be your first thing to say.
Yeah, that was like, if like you're having that one little bit, and I remember saying at this random interview that, and everyone else is offering these really like far more sensible business orientated ones, and I'm like, okay, well, I've gone left field here, but whatever.
I would say that's
I don't belong here.
I would say that's very cool though. Like, I think someone who has that says something like that over, I've run any ultra marathon. It's like, right, okay, cool guy.
Yeah, but it's not to be like, look out, but it's just like that kind of side. Otherwise, the less attention I have on me, the better, in honesty. But yeah, like that's my little thing that I like to kind of throw in.
What would I say?
I don't know if that's helped.
I've done that. I'm trying not to just do what you, because I've done that as well. So I'm like, oh, now I would say that. I think if I don't overthink it, I would probably say that the town that I lived closest to was where William Wallace was from. And they have a little, I don't know if I've have told you this, but it's a town called Lanark in Scotland.
Yeah.
And they have this, now I think it may have changed since I left.
Okay.
But when I was growing up, they had a 3 foot tall, like, I think it was a wooden plaque with like a metal top to it. They just said, here lied William Wallace's house. But it was like, there's no big sign, there was no nothing. It was just a little post in the middle of the high street. It's kind of weird to, when people think of like, I mean, maybe it's because I'm Scottish, but you think of William Wallace as being such a huge
inspirational
historical figure.
Exactly, yeah.
The fact that, you go to so many other places in the world, and if there's anything related to that famous person there, they'll have like dazzling things, and his was just, so I'd maybe say that.
I don't know, but I feel it's a very Scottish thing though.
Yeah.
just stick a post here or something like that.
And it's also funny when you move, as you have, and you live in a different country, where there's things that I thought were like universally known.
Like what?
Maybe like, well, I feel like William Wallace, maybe like Braveheart, to be honest.
Yeah.
Now that I've left, I realise that not every person has watched Braveheart.
Yeah.
Which to me now is obviously not that uncommon, but me pre-Canada was like, what do you mean no one's... Yeah. I thought it was like a cultural, global movie.
Thing. Everyone knows
and
it.
People are like, what? They're like, so what part of England's that?
Yeah. You're like, okay, I'm just going to let you off this once.
Yeah. So when you were saying about making that decision of taking no medication to help your anxieties and stuff, what age was that?
Actually, I was probably around like 13.
That's so...
something like that.
Because I thought you said that, but that's such a young age to have such a, what I think would be smart decision.
Yeah, it was... To be honest with you, it's probably taken a little while for me to... not necessarily, I'd say, accept, but maybe understand that was kind of what I was going through at the time. Because, as we know, the use of anxiety, depression has been seen as a taboo at times in the last 20 years, especially in men's health. Mm-hmm. And with it now being a lot more prominent, I think maybe that helps maybe me understand a bit more, and I understand how it looks like, what it looks like, how different it is for everyone. So yeah, kind of then dissecting that back, kind of was like, yeah, okay, that was probably what I was going through, and some of the other things that were going on at that time probably were like filling up that bucket, so to speak, for this to kind of boil over to be this problem then, but then maybe it happened at the right time because then it allowed for that growth afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, because I would agree with you so it's interesting. I agree with you. Yeah, I did the opposite of what we said. So when I was a little bit older, and by a little bit, I mean like 21 years old, just went through a period of time where I was having panic attacks and stuff like that. Again, it's funny that you say, you kind of laugh it off because I've said this so many times and I just almost say it flippantly. I'm like, yeah, I had a year of panic attacks as if it was nothing. Anyway, but I remember going to the doctor, and pre and post this period of time, I have the same mentality that I think you have, which is I would not like to take medication because I feel like medication is like putting a plaster on like or putting like a cast on a injury or something like that. You're not actually fixing the cause of the issue. You're just
it's like temporary measures, right?
Temporary measures. Yeah, thank you. And anyway, so I think that now, and I thought that then, but when I was going through like that super intense period of time, I literally was like, I will do anything to get rid of it. And I ended up so they gave me beta blockers, which to my basic understanding is that it is a drug or pill that you take that slows your heart rate down when you're having panic attacks, or it stops your heart rate rising too high. Again, I may be butchering this.
No. It's somewhat similar from my understanding as well. Right. It is something to do with, I think there's a few different variations of it as well. Because I suffered with panic attacks during that time as well. Yeah. Not to detract from it. And I had to, what was my safe thing to do? I don't know if you sort of subconsciously had one as well. I don't know if you ever remember, you could get these like travel sickness bands that had a little kind of like pressure point in your wrist. Yeah. I would wear those almost on a daily basis to make, whether it was a psychological thing, whether it actually did help regulate how I was kind of feeling and whatnot. But I was wearing those for a while. Whenever I was feeling like I was going to be anxious or something, I would have these on. You might know what I'm talking about when I show you. Yeah. But sorry, I know the medication side of things. Yeah, I think it does that. Either slows your heart rate or it kind of stops that response, that kind of, I don't want to say fear response. Again, I'm no psychologist or understanding this. I
was going to say, definitely doesn't stop the fear response because I was highly activated.
I think I've used the wrong word. Not the fear response, but the reaction. Like, when you're scared, you can be scared and that's when your heart rate goes. But I think it's you're scared, but it keeps you regulated, maybe? Yeah,
my basic understanding was that you will still have all the mental affliction, but you won't have the physical reaction. Yeah. So, but the best thing that happened to me was, so I got them, and I remember, I think it was like a pack of 14, but I was going traveling at the time for quite a long time. Awesome. Which was bittersweet because what happened was I think I'd taken like half the packet while I was away traveling though. So I'm in a foreign country and was away for like 6 months. Yeah. And I lost them. But it was the worst thing in the moment because I was like, it had become a crutch where as soon as I started to panic, I took one of these things and even the psychology of it would calm me down. The placebo, sorry. Yeah. But when I lost them, it was the best thing that happened to me because it forced me to have to deal with it myself. Yeah. And ever since then, I mean, would I have chosen that? No, but again, in hindsight, you're like, it's the best thing that happened. Yeah. But, you were talking about like having those little wristbands. So what I was doing was there was a website called nopanic.org in the UK. It's I guess it is a volunteer charity for panic attacks. Okay. And they had a website and I used to do two things. One was I would call them because you could call them and speak to a live agent and someone would talk to you on the phone and talk you off the ledge, really. Or they had a little, I think it was only maybe like 4 or 5 minute long clip that you could listen to and it was like a breathing technique. So it was like breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds. But it would be someone in a very calming voice, and then in between that, they're like, you're not going to die. Yeah. You're like, oh my God.
Thank you. Yeah. It's a bit sinister, but yeah.
Oh God. And I kind of, again, it's the gallus humor. Like I kind of laugh now thinking back on it. There's points in so I worked in like an engineering factory, so very like macho environment. There's points where I would be having panic attacks in work, would go to the toilet, would be sitting in a cubicle. So there's 2 toilets either side of me or just 2 in general. Yeah. And I would be having a panic attack, listening to this audio recording and then someone next door would be like watching the football highlights. And I was just like, if anyone knew what was going on, they honestly would just think you had lost the plot. But, yeah, kind of crazy how, again, I look back on it and I kind of laugh now. I think obviously I laugh because you and I are, I assume you're the same as me, you're in a positive position now. Yeah. But it was pretty torturous at the time. And anyway, so I was 21 and I didn't have the wherewithal that you had to push through it as opposed to kind of reaching for the crutch a little bit.
I mean, it all happens at different times. There's so many different factors within it, right? And like, who's to say that your experience was the same as mine and mine the same as yours? Like, we could never. But whilst there is a bit of it where we can empathize with each other a bit, finding that common ground, but there's going to be those different circumstances throughout all of that. And like you say, the fact that we're able to be in a positive mindset afterwards, you can then look back on it and kind of dissect it. And yeah, thanks for sharing that, by the way. You didn't have to.
No,
that was very kind of you to do that.
No, and do you, like, if it's not too much to ask, like, do you, I can tell you exactly, now I might not say it on a podcast exactly, but looking back in mine, it was not surprising. I know exactly why I was getting mine.
Yeah.
Like, the lifestyle I was living, the party boy lifestyle, 100% made sense that I was having my reaction. Did you, when you look back, are you able to, not that I'm asking you to tell me, but can you like be like, it was because of this?
Yeah. Looking back then, like I said, it was at the time, how old you are, in those mid-teens, there's so much going on hormonally, it's school, it's things going left, right and center. There's life things that are happening that you don't quite understand yet because maybe you're not emotionally developed within it. But yeah, I 100%, pretty sure 100% know definitely the factors within it that allowed me to get to that point. And I see it as a nice, positive thing that even, maybe it took me 10, 15 years to be able to actually dissect it properly and go, oh yeah, it was, now I know, because I would happily then just like put it to the back. I've definitely, when I was of that age and even just the years after, my way of dealing with it is to pretend it didn't exist. Whereas now it's the opposite, where I was like, okay, I understand it. And for someone like me who constantly wants to understand things, it confuses me how the younger me was just happy to be like, no, don't want to know. I'm going to put it away, whatever kind of thing. Just get out of my head. It can go back there, lock it up, throw away the key, not deal with it kind of thing. If that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. Yeah. I think that too, in a different way, but I think that too about, I look back on my younger self and you're just like, I can't believe you're saying, like the fact that you want to understand everything now, you can't understand why your younger self was just not wanting to understand it and just brush it to the side. I have a similar thing where just the actions I have, then I was like, now looking back and I'm just like, I can't believe I would decide to do that. And I guess I probably think that now because I did the thing, learned the lesson and now I am who I am. But I remember also something in like reading something when I was going through all those anxious moments. I read something that said, you shouldn't, and it's all to do with labels. And it said you shouldn't label yourself as an anxious person or someone who has anxiety. You should say, I have anxious moments, because it helps your brain disassociate from labeling you as a person who has anxiety. Or, that. Whereas if you say, I have anxious moments, even just the language makes you think, oh yeah, I just have moments, but the rest of the time I'm quote unquote normal. Or I have happy moments, I have sad moments. But it was kind of learning that language and even I did actually notice that it helped. Now, it didn't help instantly when I read the page and was like, I'm cured, but it definitely, over time, once I started to implement that, I think because it was making me realize, because when you're anxious, when you're anxious, right?
Yeah.
But when you're happy or just even content, you don't really notice that as much because it's not as heightened as an emotion.
Very true.
So what it made me do was I was obviously meditating. I was doing a whole bunch of stuff. And one of the things he was telling me to do was like, as much as you notice the moments you're feeling super anxious, notice the moments that you don't. And then you start to realize, you're like, oh, like half the day I'm actually not anxious whatsoever. And then it, you know, slowly builds, and then hopefully it's a very, you know, you go days without it. But did you, when you were experiencing that, I purposely educate myself on it.
Yeah.
It was one of the few things that I actually was very rational about, where I just said to myself, I need to understand what's going on and how to fix this.
Yeah.
Did you do any of that, or did you just kind of, as you say, put it to the side and figure out?
Yeah, like, again, at that age, and I think I don't recall too much because of I'm assuming the fact that I think I wanted to forget it. It has only taken until living life a bit more, let's call it, that I've been able to maybe kind of backtrack on it, to go and kind of try and assess it. Like, for example, so hold on, remind me of the question. I was going off on one tangent in my head, and then I definitely went another one.
Did you educate yourself?
That's it.
When you were going through those times?
So I think in short, no. Like I said, because I think I was just like, no, I can get through this. But then as even like 10 years later, and like seeing, like, my mum's an anxious person. My brother had his anxious moments at university that I recall, and he'd be on the phone to me, sort of just need someone to chat to. And, you know, Bobby has had her anxious moments as well. I think I found the education through others from where my younger self had dismissed it. So I think I learnt it later on rather than directly when it was happening. I don't think I was, again, I know you were saying where mine had happened and you felt like I had the strength, or the word you wanted to use, to be like, no, I don't want to take medication straight away. I wouldn't call it strength at all. It was just the decision that I made, because that's not, like I said, I don't even want that to be like how you, when you were taking medication. It's absolutely right. So that was the wrong wording there. I think that I was educated with it whilst going through it with others. And that definitely helped me then figure it out for what it was like when I was younger, if that helps.
Yeah,
I'm trying to dissect.
I think it makes total sense. I think it's easier to see traits in others than it is in yourself.
Yeah.
So if you watch someone else react a certain way, you're either like, you either see it good or bad. And I see it and even like little things where I will notice, I feel bad using Cass as an example. So obviously through this podcast, I'm trying to be better, like be a better speaker. And because I'm now so hyper aware of it, now I'll notice that Cass does certain things.
Yeah.
But it's way easier for me to notice her doing it than it is to catch myself doing it.
Yeah.
But I guess that's a bit of a tangent there, but it's the idea of being able to learn by watching others than by analysing yourself, because it's so easy to see someone else do something.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that worked. That didn't work.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you sort of said something when you're saying about how, what was it you said? You said it really well. About how you can easily, and how the psychology of it works, where you can fixate on the negative experiences, so much so that you then negate any positive experience because of the sense of emotion, because the feeling. And I think that is very evident sometimes with all sorts of things. You can easily, that's when you remember the bad things that happen, but you can almost forget about all of these things, these positive experiences that you've had throughout whatever journey it may be, or whatever circumstance it may be. Or you could have, you could even use it in sport, right? Let's say, and I'm someone who is exactly the same, and I'm trying to find a way, like, for me, again, being a hyper analytical person, even when I just play football, for example, I will try and self-analyze, and I'll always notice the things that I should have done better than the things that I did well. and then try and figure out a way how I'm supposed to be better at doing that next time. And that can come into anything, right? That could be going out on a hike with friends and the route that you chose, and you chose this route because X, Y, and Z over route ABC because of reason D, E, F. Whereas maybe it's flipped. And if you kind of get where I'm going, and then it's easy to remember, I only remember the bad thing rather than the good thing. But then also then you go into the whole risk side of things and the consequences of said decision or potential decision.
And I think I'm similar to you and being an overthinker and over-analyzer. And I was thinking when you were chatting there, do you think that you sometimes analyze instead of just feel what the right thing to do is?
Yeah.
And I'm asking that because that's my
absolutely.
current thought pattern. I have friends in my life who they just feel, and I'm talking even the reason I was thinking about
gut
it.
feel as well.
Yeah. You were talking about sport there, and you were saying how you want to be better, and like you're analyzing the movements or even whatever the context of the situation is.
Yeah.
I'm the same, and I think with snowboarding specifically, I get so bogged down in where's my knee position supposed to be in my leg, and I've got friends who don't do that whatsoever, and honestly, they're way better than me. And I think it's because they have more of a feel about it. Now I'm talking about physically with their body and emotions, but even with situations, I think people are a lot better than me of just feeling it and going with it, as opposed to me, which is, but how do I do that? How, where should I be? How should I? And I'm trying, as I get older, I'm trying to not be so analytical and go with the feel of things. But
no, I completely get it. No, I agree with you entirely there. I think I'm learning when I can be the analytical side and when I need to try and go to the more feel side. Because again, that goes back to the fact that I just want to understand. Like, they're like, it just feels like we're about to. I'm like, that's great, but why? I'm like, if someone tells me, if your knee's like that because center of balance, yada, 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 like, okay, that makes perfect sense. Then I go from the analyzed then to the feel. Like, what is it then supposed to feel like? How am I supposed to feel? It's just an interesting one. But then I think it's entirely contextual, depending on what it is. But I like the example you gave with the snowboard, because I'm like, I do that as well. I'm like, why did I catch that edge? And I'm like, I know exactly why. But I think you then learn to understand what it is you're supposed to be feeling, what you're not supposed to be feeling, in a way. Yeah. Whether it's through physical movement or...
I think when I think of snowboarding, I think of jumps and rails and boxes and tricks and stuff. No, I don't. I do this super entry level.
Hurt myself every single time I've gone to the park at Norquay.
But I think with that kind of stuff, that's the stuff where you can describe to someone you need to keep your center of gravity. But if you're actually trying, no, I don't do this by the way, but if you're actually trying to board slide or do anything on a rail, it's the feel of the balance in your body. Am I too left, too right? And that's the bit that I don't even get to that bit though, because I'm too terrified of the analytical. But what happens if and I'm trying to, I would love to be more adventurous that way, but I feel too mortal. At age 32, I'm just like,
that's why you can just put some elbow pads on, put some knee pads on.
Well, I used to.
Yeah.
You laugh, but I used to when I first,
no doubt.
When I first came to Canada, I had knee pads for snowboarding. So, when you're snowboarding, every time I would crash to my knee, not actually fall, but we would come to a stop and everyone would kind of sit down and I would crash on my knees. And I remember one of my friends one day being like, are your knees not fucked? And I was like, no. And he was like, dude, I've watched you for 2 weeks and you just smash your knees every time. And I was like, I've got these pads. And then I was pure ridicule.
Yeah.
So I got rid of them.
Oh, we did that.
For pure peer pressure. Yeah. But to be honest, it probably was a bad habit as well. It actually probably was a bad habit to have them, but...
I still wear my butt pad.
Yeah?
I had a gross injury in my teens on my coccyx, and I remember then when I was learning to snowboard in Bulgaria, landing right flat on it, and I was like, oh, that was horrible. So then I'm like, please tell me there's something to stop this. Yep, a coccyx protector. I'm like, sweet, I'll wear that all the time now. It just makes you feel more confident as well. Just as an extra bit of padding, it makes me feel more confident in then what I can do.
Yeah, that's true. I used to have the wrist guards as well for not snapping your wrist.
Yeah.
And I actually have them and I should wear them. And now that I'm past the peer pressure stage, I think I might honestly get back into wearing them because, yeah, God, I'd rather feel a little bit silly and not break anything than break something. But
then why are you deeming it silly?
That is a very good question. I couldn't even answer that because I guess it is, if I try and answer it, is it because...
Then you still feel the peer pressure that you had.
Yeah, that's true.
But if it's something that makes you feel safe, right? And they wouldn't create them otherwise if it wasn't going to be something that would generally help. I mean, there's probably a good bunch of the pros that do it. I mean, the ski racers, right? They have these armored gloves and everything. Okay, granted, us trying to do a rail compared to these ski racers going down 100 kilometers an hour, maybe not the right limits, but still, that could be our 100 kilometers an hour, right?
Well, I think, and this is an excuse, but it actually was when there wasn't peer pressure related. The wrist guards are kind of annoying with gloves.
Yeah,
because the gloves isn't really that easy to get on. But again, it's like, well, for the 2 seconds that you're putting your gloves on in the morning to save yourself.
Yeah, I was teasing. I was just playing.
No. But I was thinking there. I was like, why have I stopped using it? But we were chatting. So like with the anxious moments or like the periods of anxiety. So I had mine at a very intense period of time that I actually want to ask you about because it's a place that you've been to. So I remember, so I was traveling and maybe like a month or so into my travels, I was in Nepal.
Yeah.
And it's bittersweet again because my memories of Nepal were unbelievable. Mm-hmm. But my real present moment experience of it at the time was terrible. Because I remember calling my mum. I was honestly maybe like a month and a half into what was supposed to be about a year and a half of being away. I was supposed to travel for 6 months, live in Australia for a year and go home. Gotcha. About 6 weeks into it, and I'm called my mum in Nepal, and I said to her, I need to come home. Like, this is like unbearable being away and having these panic attacks and not know what to do and being in a foreign place, blah, blah. And she told me to stay, and I did, and it all worked out. But it's really unfortunate because, you know, you and I have chatted a little bit about Nepal, and that's what I want to ask you here is, what was your experience of it? Because my memory of it is amazing, but my experience of it was kind of terrible.
So remind me again what you did.
So I went to, so this is kind of, so when I went to Nepal, I didn't even know hiking was a thing in Nepal, which is crazy to admit, having now been there.
It's also fun to be so like, let's see what's here, right?
Yeah. So that's what I went in with. And when I got there, so I got to Kathmandu, I was only there for 2 weeks. So I got to Kathmandu and I literally was like, so what do people do here? Which is mental to think. And obviously it's all about the Himalayas and climbing. So I met these, I think it was these two guys, and they were going to Pokhara. Yeah. And they were doing the Annapurna base camp. Nice. So that's kind of what I went to do. I say kind of because then we chatted about it before. I got to the second to last guest house, got altitude sickness, and then came back down.
Oh, no, I didn't realize that. No, I don't think we got to that far.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. Yeah, so I went to Pokhara, did the Annapurna base camp, and for someone, I will say, and again, this is why it was bittersweet, because it was for someone who, at that point, it wasn't anxious moments, it was anxiety constantly. Yeah. Doing any hike in the Himalayas was extremely, in my opinion, remote. And it felt like there was a helicopter every day bringing people down who had not even a major accident, but they'd got altitude sickness or whatever. So this constant reminder, while I'm already terrified of going up higher and higher, this helicopter every day, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to lose the plot. So yeah, I got to I did Annapurna base camp, didn't get to the base camp, got to the second to last guest house, got altitude sickness, and then that's a very short version of that story. There's a lot of a lot more to it, but that's honestly kind of, and then I came down and I kind of left. Yeah. So that was my very brief 2 week, but it's funny because I love Nepal. Yeah. And it's such a weird thing to think because I had such a bad experience there, but my memory of it's incredible. Yeah. Because of what it's like. So I want to ask you about your experience.
You had a bit of everything then, didn't you?
Oh God, yeah.
And it's interesting as well, like you say, and just as we were talking about language, and you were saying you saw a helicopter like what felt like every day, so there must be people having issues.
That's so true.
Whereas like it kind of got that more fear side out of you, rather than you could flip it and be like, oh, there's helicopters coming up and down, which means if I have something wrong, I can get back to civilization quickly.
I have never thought of it.
Interesting way of thinking of it, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And you're just like...
I looked at it the way that my mindset was.
Yeah, exactly, which is completely understandable.
Yeah.
But that's that, and I say fun loosely, but that fun kind of... Let's call it a disagreement between the rational and the irrational mind, right? Your ability to think in a particular way during moments of distress or under pressure. And when your mind wants to think that one way about a particular thing, you're only thinking in this one-dimensional little kind of way, aren't you? You're not, it's hard to be able to think about everything, to encompass maybe that change in mindset.
And even
so it's completely understandable.
Yeah. And even though I have, and this is now 11 years ago. No, this is now like 8 or 9 years ago.
Okay.
And I still, you're the first person that's made me realize that was even a possibility. I've never even thought. I have always been like, oh, the helicopters were bringing people down. I never once, in the whole time that I've even been back, thought that could have been a positive thing. Anyway, sorry.
No. Yeah, it's like I say, sometimes it's not always in plain sight. Like, and again, when you're thinking one certain way because you're feeling how you're feeling, it's completely understandable. And again, that whole rational mind versus irrational mind isn't always coexisting. There's always, the irrational mind tends to beat down that rational mind quite easily in those respects. But yeah, so my experience in Nepal, I love it. I love Nepal.
How many times have you been? Sorry, I mean...
No, you're good. Just so that is going to be I've been twice. I've been lucky to go twice. Bobby and I did our travels around Southeast Asia for 8 months.
Wow.
Back. What year were you there?
I would have been around about 2017, 18.
Okay, you were like the year after. So you were there after the earthquake as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Nepal. Yeah, I was there the year after.
Yeah, the year after. We were there the year after, because we were there in 16.
Was it not 2000?
And I think it was in 15.
Oh, maybe I made that up then.
Oh, no. I'm just trying to figure out, because what time of year were you there as well?
So I was there, oh God, you're really, like November-ish.
Okay. We were there in June.
Okay. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I met someone, I actually can't remember when the earthquake was, but I remember I was chatting to someone in a bar, and they were telling me how they were in the earthquake. And for whatever reason, I've always remembered that they said last year. But again, my memory might just be failing.
No, that's completely understandable. I think it was 2015 is when it happened. So we were there in 2016. Nepal was our last stop from our travels, and I'd always wanted to go. I had this fixation throughout uni and that of like I read these like the Everest disaster books.
Yeah.
Like,
sorry, I'm laughing.
No. I just had this fixation with like the Himalayas of, like your Into Thin Air, like your John Krakauer, Dark Summit, the whole 2006, 2008, I can't remember which year, tragedies, all those kind of Himalayan climbing Everest ones. It was just really cool. I like got into those a lot. And I think I learned a lot from those kind of reading. And I'm not the biggest bookworm. I struggle to be able to pay attention enough. I'm more of I learn better through doing, speaking, understanding than I am as a reader. But if I were to, it would be these nonfiction, like books like that, where it's like these feats and these journalistic approaches to like what happened during this event kind of thing. And Nepal, so I have to go back to the Nepal side of things. It was awesome. The first time I went, so Bobby and I went there, we were actually really lucky. When I was 16, I had my first part-time job at McDonald's, which was great. Like 10 minutes from my house, I got to, be that spotty teenager that all we did was go to college each day and get free McDonald's. And there was, because of where I lived, there was quite a Nepalese cohort near there. So I'd always be chatting with them. There was absolutely lovely sentiment of people. I was like, oh, you know, and then I remember looking into Nepal and it's like, oh, this is such a cool place. It's all the mountains and things like that. Fast forward then that 9 years when Bobby and I went traveling, 10 years on from that. And I was still in contact with one of the guys from my time there. And I just sort of reached out. I was like, hey, Sabin, Bobby and I are heading to Nepal. Don't suppose you could recommend anything? Then within like an hour, we were in a group chat with his like really good friends in Kathmandu. We were organizing to stay at his uncle's guest house and hotel. They were picking me up from the airport. And it was like, oh, this has just gone like that so good. But then that is just a true testament. I personally feel the Nepalese people and the Nepalese culture are just so welcoming. And like, I'd never even met the person before in my life. And this guy's like, yeah, it's right. We'll do this. We'll do that. We'll do that. Oh, okay, cool. Just like, okay, this is where I'm having to go with the flow. And, so we went there and we got taken around some really cool bits of Kathmandu with, his friend, which I have absolutely terribly cannot remember his name, which is really bad.
Looked after you, can't you?
Yeah. But we went all around to these different parts of Kathmandu, and he was sort of saying about the earthquake. And he was like, they were really lucky where they lived. They lived on a part of the city that didn't get hit too hard. But if you went to the other side of the city, it was just crumbling. And then I remember walking through, I can't remember that kind of square within Kathmandu, but it was just rubble. And there was like a bit of tape. And it must have been like that for like 6 months, something like that. So it was kind of weird to see, considering where we're from. We don't really have, I personally don't think we do. But then again, it's down to interpretation. But we don't really have like extreme events.
I wouldn't say so.
You know, we maybe have flooding and those big storms, but we don't really have what I would, within my risk profile, deem as an extreme event. But, you know, they had an earthquake where literally this building just like that. And it's not something that's uncommon. It's happened before. But this one was just so devastating. So it was interesting to then talk to him about, you know, what's happened, how it's happened, how his views are and how they maybe could have dealt with the aftermath better and so on and so forth. So it was really cool to be able to go into that, be shown around these places that maybe not people would be able to go around. But I feel that's what part of life and traveling is you're getting to experience these things that if you're just willing to kind of just go with the flow a little bit in a way. I know that's completely going off from my over-analytic tide. But that's, again, things I've kind of learned along the way is to be trusting of people more, that, you know, these you're gaining this shared experience and there's maybe something you can offer within this shared experience for them. And I remember like all these different questions going on. It was that like knowledge exchange within it of what's life like for me, what's life like for you, and then this kind of broadening of your horizons. But it was really fun, really good to do, very eye-opening. I remember we went to this spot on top of this hill and you were kind of looking down. There was the river and all you could see with all these different ceremonies going on, and my knowledge of ceremonies and which culture or religion they sit within is not particularly strong. So this may be incorrect, but I know there's quite a lot of obviously Hindu and Buddhist culture within Nepal, and one of those is when someone dies, they float them down the river within Kathmandu, and I can't remember the name of that, but you had this view of just from as far as the eye can see all these different ceremonies going on. And then we were sitting there with a friend of ours just chatting, and he was just explaining it to us, and like he was like, look, you can see here this family was very poor. They were only able to get like a basic platform, and they only had a very small ceremony. There was like 2 or 3 people, whereas over here you can tell this person was really rich because it was all of these flowers and things like that. And like obviously there was someone that everyone knew because there was a huge crowd, and it was just really interesting again because we as within the UK, that's not how we do celebrate death in that respect, but we don't float their ashes or remains down a river on fire. We do it a different way, but that's it was just interesting to understand that, the similarities between it, but how that was done there. I remember that being a very kind of, I don't think I would have experienced this if Bobby and I were on our own, just doing our own thing. It felt like we were being accepted in or being shown this kind of part of the culture that maybe we wouldn't have necessarily seen even if we went looking for it. So I felt that set our time like a really good start. I know we were just talking about death and talking about it being a good start, but as in like how we were welcomed in by the friends, I guess I sort of going back to it. But then, we did Annapurna Base Camp as well.
Oh, nice.
And that whole journey, I felt like it was exactly what you kind of envision what the Himalayas look like, just this huge expanse of what felt like remoteness and just these mountains that were just so high you just couldn't fathom it. It wasn't a rainy day up Scafell Pike. It was this blooming 7,000-8,000 meter behemoth that was like Machaputre or Amadablam is over in the Everest region, but you've just got these just gigantic mountains that you're like, I never thought I'd be anywhere near anything like this in my life. And just giving that scale. Oh, it was just awesome. Then, like I said, that and then the people make it as well. Like we had such a wonderful guide, just everyone met along the way, that kind of sharing of experiences that you're learning something every day, whether it's cultural, whether it's, how certain things work there. You're constantly like stimulated by what you're seeing because it's so different to what you're used to. And then, I ended up, so that was just the first trip. Then we went to Pokhara as well, sort of just there. We were going to go hang gliding, but the weather wasn't right. So that's one thing that we were gutted with. We waited for 4 days for the weather to clear up to get us hang gliding over the lake at Pokhara, but it never happened.
Oh, damn. That would have been sweet.
That would have been really cool.
Were you in any way put off by the fact that the earthquake had happened the year before? Because when I was there, I was, again, not in a great headspace, but I was constantly thinking, there's going to be an earthquake.
Yeah.
So were you not, are you more just, you know what happened, you accept it, and you just enjoy the moment? Whereas I was like, I'm going to die.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those where, I don't know, on one side you have the view of, you could look at it where something's happened like that. What are the odds of it happening so soon again? Mm-hmm. Again, it's all depending on the context, right? What it is you're talking about. But there's that. But there's also that, I don't know, sometimes I'm a bit of a purveyor of chaos, in the fact that like, I know there there's that risk, right? But you then analyze this, like what is the probability of it happening? And then kind of going, okay, I don't know, in a way if I got caught up in it, I'm also intrigued as to how I would react. So I'm always looking at it from an educational standpoint where I'm like, do I have, what would I do? Do I have the knowledge, or how would I deal with this situation if it were to arise? I don't know.
Yeah, in a much
weird one.
Sillier way. I sometimes think about that when you see something on anything, any platform like YouTube or Instagram, and it's like a sinking car, and you're like, I would always jump in, and I try and pre-program my brain and be like, if I ever see a car sinking, like jump in, because you really don't know what you would do.
No.
You would do. And what, if you don't mind me asking, what does a purveyor of chaos mean? I don't actually know what that means.
Basically, someone that seeks out chaos.
Oh, okay, right, okay.
I don't literally seek out chaos, but. And I'm using that in a much far stronger.
You lean a little bit in that way, though.
Yeah, like my risk profile leans me to the I wonder what it would be like to experience it. Yeah. But then there's probably people out there that are like, why would you want to experience it? Because it's horrible. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. That's really not how I should be thinking with it. But it's more of a like, what would it genuinely feel like to be in that situation? It would probably be horrible. And I don't want to feel it or maybe deal or be a part of it. But at the same time, I'm like, well, this is what some of these people live with on a daily basis, that these things may happen. And it feels like from where we are, we're quite sheltered with where we kind of lived originally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that...
If that
makes sense. Yeah. I think I had that experience the whole time I was in Nepal. I know, and it's more in my mindset than probably actually there being any chaos ensuing. But I did feel like Nepal was a place where the highway when I was there wasn't like a motorway or highway. It's just a dirt track road as the main road.
You're talking about from Kathmandu to Pokhara as well?
From Kathmandu to Pokhara specifically,
yeah.
So I even felt like that journey, I remember sitting on the buses that feel like a local person has welded it together from like previous buses that have come apart. And I remember, I swear my life this is what I did. So it's not a big bus, like imagine like for anyone listening.
I've been on that bus.
Like a school bus, like an American school bus, the yellow ones. I was looking out of the window. I'm looking out the window, like down at my side, which goes like immediately like 1,000 feet to the valley floor. And then I'm looking at the window on the other side, which is like partially open. And I remember vividly thinking in my head, I was like, if this starts to roll, can I jump out that window? Like that's how I don't know that was, but and then also, so you would be driving and you would see landslides in motion, but you would have seen the debris of one. And I remember there's actually two stories. So the first one's a funny story, which was I was going back from Pokhara to Kathmandu and I was in the hostel and I was just waiting to leave. And a random guy came up to me, just chatting shit as you do in hostels. And he said to me, "Oh, like, what are you up to?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just waiting to go back to Kathmandu." And he said, "Oh, did you hear about the bus yesterday?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "Rolled into the valley, everyone died." And I was like, "Why would you tell me that?" I'm literally getting on a bus which was terrifying. But the thing that was more relevant to what we were talking about was I was with these guys and they were going to do a hike. Now I think it was Lombok maybe or something like that. But anyway, it was a town. They were hiking through a town.
Right.
I maybe got the name totally wrong there, by the way. But anyway, it's kind of like that. Hiking through a town in Nepal somewhere. And I remember, I knew that there'd been an avalanche. The whole town had been swept away.
Oh, right.
And I was like, I said to them, I was like, "Why are you going there? Like, they just had an earthquake there."
Yeah.
And they were like, "Dude, you're in Nepal. Like, it's everywhere."
Yeah.
Now, again, that was maybe a bit of maybe have a little bit of a negative mentality for all of us, from them and me, but it was a bit of a realization. I was like, wow, this is, not that it is super dangerous because it is beautiful and I got out unscathed and it was amazing, but I think I felt like I was very much a purveyor of chaos with just being there the whole time. I was like, what's going on here?
But then at the same time, I'm very much of the belief, that you only know what you know.
Yeah.
Right? And if you don't know, you just don't know.
I think
you can just learn.
I was also hyper fixated on the negatives at that point in my life.
Right.
So I was,
okay.
You're saying like you don't know what you know, or like you know what you know. I was seeking out oh my God, this happened last year.
Ah, okay.
Like
I see what you mean.
To kind of like
validation to
to throw this all back to my thing of like seeking the moments when you're anxious and you're not anxious. It was kind of a similar mentality where I wasn't looking for the years of complete safety and amazing things going on. I was looking for but last year in this location they did this. I was being my own creator of doom.
Okay.
In my mind.
Yeah.
When I look back at it now.
But it's a spiral, right? So when you've got that kind of way you're thinking, it's so difficult to shift it when you can easily, like you say, hyperfixate on those negative aspects of it to give you reasons not to do something rather than the other reasons to do it. I say logical like that because we can't always have our logical mind there working. As we were saying, that illogical mind or that irrational mind will definitely sometimes take over, and sometimes as a defense mechanism, on things that aren't necessarily natural.
And you were saying how, now I don't know if I'll tell you what my background and cultural feeling with this, but you were chatting about how their friend, I can't remember their name, apologies, but their friend had like family and they were all so welcoming and, you felt like that was like a thing of Nepali people where they were so welcoming. And I actually had the same experience in India where I felt nothing but, honestly, minus like one occasion, I felt nothing but people trying to help me out constantly.
Yeah.
And if you're a fan of Harry Potter, this is really random, but
I know of Harry Potter. Bobby is more of the fan than I am, but go for it.
Right, so you know how Harry Potter, you've got the 4 houses, and at the end of the year they would have their points. They had those like big. So I used to think, this is so stupid, but this is how I developed this thought process. Mm-hmm. And it does tie into what I'm trying to say here, which was, I was almost taken aback with how welcoming and how helpful people were to me in places like, and for me it was India and Nepal and other places, but I guess just to blanket the statement, throughout my entire travels of Asia, and it wasn't just Asian people, it was people I met from England or Germany or wherever but I was honestly taken aback with how welcoming, helpful, kind, generous.
Just
sorry, that's the word I'm looking for.
well,
generous people were to me. And the reason I brought up Harry Potter was because I started to think about it like Harry Potter in the sense of, so you had those, at the end of the year, they had those big cylinders that had all their points in it.
Yeah.
They'd be like, 10 points to Gryffindor.
Yeah.
So I used to break it down in my mind, and I had two of them in my mind. One was, and they were called my generosity meters. One was my own personal one.
Yeah.
And one was the one that I received.
Yeah.
And I, for literally years, felt that my generosity meter from other people far outweighed the one that I had for giving to people.
Interesting.
And there was like a little like mental visualization in my head, but that was something that I definitely learned. And it sounds like you kind of had that experience in Nepal or just with Nepali people where it completely shifted my willingness to be generous to others, you know?
Yeah. And there was, now you're kind of saying that, there was this other aspect of it. So we did Annapurna Base Camp. We went up there again. We had that awesome experience. And then we were coming down on the last day, and it was just Bobby, myself, and a guide. And he was like, my family lived like an hour and a half to 2 hour hike from where we got dropped off. Are you guys in a rush to get back or anything, or would you be up for coming and seeing my family? And we were just like, sure, why not? This is a very kind thing. We got to know him really well, like really nice guy, probably of similar age as we were, and he was this hiking guide in the Himalayas, and we were just these, backpackers, just like, we just really want to see Nepal. And he was like, oh, would you like to come? My family, they live, we're like, yeah, sure, absolutely. We're not in a rush to get in. He was like, you sure? So I was like, yeah, so it won't cost you anything. I was like, no, honestly, we'd love to. So I remember us going there on this hike, and, we're not really sure what we're expecting, apart from just lovely things as it has been. And they were farmers in think of those wide reaching Himalayan valleys with like rice paddies and things like that. And they, were farmers on the side of this small little village. They had, everything was made out of, it sounds like one of those like, I want my gapyar. This is why I'm like so conscious about it all. It sounds like, here we go again. Sound like that, but I know you mean. It's but then I feel exceptionally lucky and privileged to be able to experience it. I want to just make sure I never forget that we are very lucky to be able to experience the life that we're living. And the opportunities that we've had, even with the trips to Nepal, to be able to be like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? You are going to go for traveling for a year and a half. Like, not everyone can do that. And this very much experience kind of cemented that, but they were happy, right? That was the kind of thing, like they had little, I remember we went, they were farming in the fields with their yak, and we were just there for like an hour, and Bob and I were like, it just feels really awkward because it's like we're like sitting here like watching them work. They were like, no, it's all good. And then they spoke very little English, but a smile goes a long way, and a willingness to try and at least interact. And I remember Bobby was trying to, she asked our guide, Krishna, if he could sort of write out how to say something along the lines of, thank you ever so much for dinner. It was really nice. So then Bobby spent like a good half an hour trying to say it, because we did we slept in this room at the side where the windows basically opened up to where the yak lived. I did not sleep a wink that night. Yeah.
Oh wow,
yeah, we
very
slept
cool.
there. I remember being absolutely hilarious because, like I said, it was just literally think where the yak stayed was there, and then where you are is this wooden window, and it was cracked open, and we were sleeping here, and you could smell it, you could hear it. It was just it was fun. Like, you know, I got a terrible night's sleep, but it was just so the fact they were like, please do stay. We have this where you can stay and just do that. So it was really fun.
That's very cool.
And then, and we sort of had their dinner, and I remember it because we were all sitting on the floor with our legs crossed. Me and legs crossing don't really go well. My hips are gross.
I would agree.
So I remember just trying, and then I had to kind of like shuffle and sit a different way. And I remember his mum was like, said something and looked at me, and I'm just like, Krishna, can you translate for that, please? And he was just saying, she was just wondering if everything was okay. And I'm like, I'm terrible at crossing my legs. I just can't do it. I was just trying to make it. She was like, oh, okay. And then just sort of like laughed it off. I'm like, because I know you shouldn't, in that culture, sit with like the bottom of your feet facing anyone.
Okay.
So I then kind of had to sort of shift it another way so that I wasn't doing that. So yeah, it was just it was like funny things like that where I just didn't know, or I just can sit. I don't know. I know where I was going with that, but it was just that kind of side of things that was just really nice, and that whole interaction. And Bobby got to, like, she was able to say this phrase in Nepali, and her mum was like, oh, this was so nice. I remember then when we were leaving, and she asked because Bobby had her camera with her, if she could take some photos of their home and their family. So we did it with her mum, her dad, her brother, some of the village, just all of these photos, and then we sent them to Krishna. Apparently his parents were really grateful of it, and it was just this really heartwarming experience. And they were just all stood there, and Krishna was just like, don't worry, Nepali people just don't smile in photos, so everyone's just there straight face, and you just saw us like, it's fine. Oh, it was so funny. It was just, again, that kind of cross-cultural like experience. And then her mum was like, oh, thank you both ever so much for coming. You're welcome back anytime. And her dad gave me one of the Hindu hats to take home and take away. Cool. Bobby got like a shawl or something. We were like, no. They were like, no, we want you to take it. I'm like, I can't offer. Is there anything we can do? And it was like, honestly, those photos with us will be more than enough. You know, like whenever Krishna went home to his parents and he took his laptop, they were like, what is this laptop kind of thing? Oh, it was just such a really wholesome experience to how they were just like, yep, sure, welcome them into it. And that's just always cemented it.
Yeah, I would love to go back to Nepal with a positive mindset and have that experience. Not necessarily like stay in someone's house specifically, just find a random person like, can I stay in your house? But just to go back and have that more of a positive, like being able to in the moment appreciate the beauty of
the simplicity of it as well, right?
And you were saying, are you planning on going back, or you?
So I had
just want to.
I just want to. Okay. I went back a second time. Let's probably say about 4 years after. That was for a friend's stag do.
To Nepal?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they mentioned that. Yeah, we...
wow, that's such a unique place for a stag do.
Yeah, his idea was, I don't want to do the standard, like, go to Mallorca or Ibiza or whatever. He's like, I want to do a life experience, like a once-in-a-lifetime style thing, to do Everest Base Camp. So... he was like, this is like your 18-month warning, you know, him and I, because I'd been before, I was like, look, I know where we can look. I've got some contacts in Nepal already. Let me help you sort it out. So he went and sorted it out, went direct through someone in Nepal rather than going through a third party. And then, there was 10 of us that went to Everest Base Camp. That was cool. That was a different experience than what Bobby and I had. But it was still awesome. Like, I remember coming back into Kathmandu. I still remembered where things were. Obviously, it was a different part of the mountains, with the Annapurna region being further to the west and the Everest region being further to the kind of north. And that like flight in to Lukla on this tiny plane. And just, again, the expanse of it all. And like having that experience of being within like a mile and a half in a straight line of like the tallest point on Earth was just so strange. But yeah, my views on it were a bit weird, because it was fantastic, every part of it. It was very much more of a journey. You know, you have that age-old saying of sometimes it's more about the journey than the destination. Cliche number 700 of this evening. And it was kind of that, like the whole experience and with friends, and I say that part where you could see Everest and you were so close to it. I think when I was looking back on it again, sometimes it takes a while for me to kind of dissect it all fully. I felt the same with Machu Picchu. Like, you're in this unbelievable, whether it's historically important place or natural place, and I didn't know what I was supposed to be gaining out of it, if that makes sense. Like, these things for me, like I'm not ticking a box. I'm going to these places because I find them interesting. Is how I kind of look at it, because I feel like there are times these days where we're just ticking these boxes of things that we want to do, and everyone has their own reasons for doing it. But I feel like sometimes it's like, oh, you've got to go there because someone else went there, kind of thing. I try and be like, no, it's because I want to go there. And yeah, I didn't know. It was like a little busy when we were at base camp. Again, it makes sense because it's great that it's accessible. So I always argue with this in my head that, like, those things, especially Machu Picchu, like, you can basically get a bus to where the start of it is. And obviously it's kind of like Banff, right? These things, it's somewhere stunning. It's where people want to be and it's so accessible. I think you then have to kind of bring it back to, like, okay, it's accessible for the right reasons, but then you can argue it's accessible for the wrong reasons depending on how your view of it is. So then that can ultimately alternate the experience that you want to take out of it. Like, it felt busy. Like, we were just queuing to take a photo over this rock that said Everest Base Camp at 5 or however meters high. And I'm just like, this is like, we are in arguably one of the most that mountain is like, so few people go up it. Yet to this point, just by it, it's like a little village of people that have all come because they want to do it. So then I'm like, am I part of the problem? And you kind of, I just went down these so many different arguments within my own head about what it is that I was to try and keep it short without rambling on too much. Like, what did I expect? And why did I expect it to be that way compared to what I actually got?
So what did you expect it to be?
I don't know. It was awe-inspiring. Of course it is, but I don't know. When you think about these places, you think that there's going to be that quiet, that, you know, that time, that space where you're in the middle of nowhere and there's no one about. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't that.
I think I know what you mean, where I have it. And I went to Everest Base Camp as well. So,
oh, you did? Oh, awesome.
No, actually, caveat that. I would then go to the Nepali base. I didn't go to the actual base camp. I went to a base camp, a monastery on the Tibetan side, where it's a monastery on the Tibetan side, but which is at the same height.
Gotcha.
And it's not a base camp whatsoever, but for whatever reason they call it a base camp.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but I think it was the same as you though, where like I expected to. Now it's weird because I think with everything else minus this one thing that I'm discussing, I maybe have a similar thing where you go somewhere and you expect this feeling of like, oh my god, and then you don't get that because you're like, oh, I guess it's still amazing, but you're like, it's ultimately just a mountain or whatever the thing you're at. For me though, when I went to Everest, I did get that feeling, but it was the significance of the fact that getting to Everest was not even necessarily seeing Everest, but it was that was a turning point in my mind where I started to kind of like lean more into like a positive mentality and stuff. And I think it was because I was like, oh my god, I didn't actually think I would get to this. So I think when I got there, I got that feeling that you and I probably, maybe it sounds like neither of us really get a lot when we go to places like Machu Picchu. I actually got that and I was like, holy fuck, this is actually
awesome.
But I know what you mean though, because usually I'll go somewhere like, honestly, anywhere. And I've always caveated it by saying that I did all the travels. Now I met people, but I did it alone. If I wasn't with someone that I'd met there. And you know, you could be in the most beautiful places in the world, and if you're by yourself, it's kind of lonely.
Yeah.
So I think that was always my excuse for not really having that sense of feeling like of awe, because I was kind of there alone, and I think it was like that. But
I get that. It's like I said, I definitely had that sense of awe, but I just don't know. Like you were saying, like you feel like there's supposed to be something else, but you can't describe what it is. I think that to be fair, there was that there was one moment, now looking back, it was when, I think it's just because it was the day before, you kind of did the little hike up, we were staying at Gorak Shep, and then you hike out to Everest Base Camp and then hike back the same day. Then you stay there and then you get up at like 4 a.m. to go, and if you wanted to go up and hike, I can't remember the name of it, which is going to bug me. Anyway, there's this small little hike you can then do, which gives you this beautiful aspect looking up at Everest, up the icefall with Lhotse and Nuptse to the side. And I think I had the moment or the feeling I was looking for then, because you just saw that the sun touched the very summit of Everest first, out of everything else. And it's like it lit it up in all its glory. And as you actually look at it from that side, you kind of have to be like, oh, it's that one, isn't it? And you're like, no, it's actually that little bit there. It always doesn't look like you would think it looks.
Yeah, because you're already so high.
Yeah. And there's more mountains out there that, in my opinion, are a lot more dramatic.
Yeah.
But you're just like, oh yeah, it's actually that bit just there that's Everest. And you're just kind of like, oh, that's so cool. You're like, like I said, like a mile and a half as the crow flies from the tallest point on Earth. And you're just like, okay, this was cool. So yeah, well, I think again, that goes back to our discussion of we kind of fixate on, or the ability to fixate on the potential negative connotation of it, and compared to this other bit where I did have this experience, but I think it took this conversation for me to be like, oh, actually, yeah, that was how I kind of felt at that moment. And that to my friends as well, people were crying, we were all hugging, it's kind of one of those things. And I was like, okay, that was the moment, I think.
And I thought it was really cool when you told me the other day, not today, but you told me that, so you and your friends purposely, now I think you said 3 years, but you said every number of years you will purposely do something like Nepal, Kilimanjaro, etc.
Yeah, well, we hope to. I mean, this was only the second, like Kilimanjaro earlier in the year was the second time we've done it. But we were we definitely keep a dialogue going of like, okay, like what next time? I threw out Aconcagua for next time, and everyone's like, okay, we need like 3.5 weeks for that. I'm like, we'll make it work. But yeah, we try and yeah, these are people that live kind of all over the world as well, so it's kind of a nice way to get back, see each other again. Like some I hadn't seen since coming out to Canada, and some I hadn't seen since we did Everest Base Camp, because people live in different parts of the country or the world, and then you kind of just meet up again. It's just like where you kind of lift off from. It was just really nice.
And is it your childhood friends or just people that you've met through life?
Yeah, people that we've met through life. Yeah, just kind of one of those.
Because I was trying to think of my childhood friends. I have one maybe, and he's not actually a childhood friend. Yeah. He was someone I became friends with like in my early 20s. He's the only person back home that I would do. Him and I did tons of hikes in the Highlands and stuff. So when you were saying that you and your friends do all these trips, I was like, my friends would not do any of that. So I didn't know if it was, but people I now know, such as yourself and other people in town, I would. So I was like, does Sam just have this really engaging group of friends that all want to go hiking? But yeah, it doesn't sound that way.
No, it was just I actually know them through when I came back from uni and joined a football team, and it was like a really nice group of guys, not your traditional Sunday league
abusive
wankers. Yeah, none of those guys.
You weren't giving the referee abuse in a Sunday league game?
Not at that age, at least. Nowadays. So it was kind of that, like, it was really nice to kind of meet those people that didn't take themselves too seriously. We had fun playing because we liked playing this sport that we all loved. And then we could do these things outside of it, like go hiking, and then like it slowly evolved into these other trips that we did. Like, we try and find long weekends to go up to Wales and things like that. And yeah, it was just kind of, I felt very lucky to kind of meet those guys. And like I said, even if I don't talk to them for 6 months at a time or don't see them for a couple of years at a time, like with this group where we're like, right, okay, guys, let's do something. And it happens. That some of them have kids, they're married, everyone is in so many different parts of their life, but we can all find that time to be like, okay, what are we doing? What's our next thing? It's been a few years, or it's been a couple of years. What's next on the agenda to kind of do it? So yeah, when we had the opportunity we talked about, I remember on the Nepal trip towards the end of it, we were all out for drinks at the end of it. We're celebrating. And I was like, right, what's next then? And like Kilimanjaro out. We're like, okay, right, we'll be in touch in like 18 months. And then, it starts up again. And that's how then it came full circle to doing Kili. And most of them came from the UK, one from from Australia.
Wow.
Obviously came over from Canada, that fun journey.
What was it like just going to Africa? Like, I know we kind of chatted about Kilimanjaro, but what was Africa like itself?
Yeah, it was really cool. Like, it's one of the, again, I've only now in Africa, I can only say I've really been to Tanzania.
Yeah.
So to give a full kind of sweeping side of it, it's just not correct to do. But my experience was awesome. Like, obviously, and it was just, it's East Africa. And that's going to be different to what South Africa would be, or what the likes of Egypt, Algeria, and then going on to the West Coast will be. But Tanzania was lovely. Again, I was just welcomed straight off the bat. I remember my flight was delayed. It was supposed to be a 21-hour journey. It was a 34-hour journey. My luggage didn't arrive. It was like this kind of chaos to begin with.
Purveyor of chaos.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, okay, I probably deserve this by now. And I was being in touch with the kind of hotel that we were staying at, and then I had to basically get a taxi by myself with someone there because the driver's car had broken down. So I was like, sure, whatever. So then I had to give my phone to one of the taxi guys and hope that, that you're always slightly on edge as well in a new country or whatever. You're like, do I trust this person? Yeah, I must trust this person. And then you sort of get in this fun little beat up car with just my rucksack with probably about one spare pair of underwear. I had trousers on that I thought was a good idea to travel in. It was 32 degrees and I was knackered. And then I was just chatting to this guy the whole journey to the hotel about everything and anything. And it was just fun to then get that kind of idea. And he was just like opening up about how it kind of all worked there. And there's the little insights into kind of daily life of what it is to kind of live there and do that. So that was like a nice start to it. I was very lucky to get on a safari as well.
Oh, wow.
I was supposed to do it on the day I got there. Had to do it the day after.
Because the whole chaos of...
Yeah, exactly. I was supposed to arrive the night before, but didn't arrive like the morning of. And when you think of that part of Africa as well, you think like the whole idea of a safari, the big three and things like that. And again, it was one of the things I was like, well, I'm here and I'd love to go to one of these conservation areas and kind of experience it. So we went to a place called the Ngorongoro Crater, which if I recall is the most biodiverse place on the planet per square kilometers.
Wow.
And it was just mad. Like everywhere you look, there was something. There was lions, there was rhinos, there was bull elephants, there was hippos, there was flamingos, there was just everything all the time, everywhere. And it was just and again, it was awesome. Like to have that experience as well, to be just the diversity of it all. And yet in the middle of this, you have the tallest freestanding mountain on planet Earth is there as well, like just being a background of it. It's just like, this is quite pretty, isn't it? So that was, that was a cool one.
I had friends who went to, I don't know if it was Tanzania, but they went to Africa and did a safari, and they said the same thing where their guide in the morning would say to them, what do you want to see? And my friend said, you could be as specific as you want. You'd be like, I want to see a lion or like a cheetah sleeping in a tree, and he'd take you there. And be like, there you go. And he'd be like, cheetah sleeping in a tree.
Yeah.
Or I want to see like a lion chase down an antelope, and he'd be like, cool. It sat there for like 30 minutes and then...
it happened.
But I think something I realised, and it kind of sounded like you were chatting about it when you were talking about the taxi scenario and the purveyor of chaos, but actually more just being a different place and trusting people with your phone.
Yeah.
I think when I realised when I went to India, just I think because it was the first place I went to, I had a lot of these experiences there where the change in pace of life and culture was a learning curve. So, you know, you were talking about the taxi breaking down, and made me think about when I was going from Kathmandu to Pokhara during the night, the bus broke down. And obviously, I think maybe in like a Western culture, you would be somewhat used to being given updates and stuff like that. Even if nothing was happening, the bus driver would be like, hey, but it kind of felt like everyone was just chilling. And I was like, I remember being like, I'm in a valley in the middle of nowhere. The bus is broken down, and everyone who was Nepali just kind of looked like they were
not bothered.
Yeah. And it was an interesting experience to just see a different culture and how people approach that. It was a slower pace of life, which was kind of nice. Less panic, less like, we must get to...
Like, we'll get there at some point.
Yeah, so I'd imagine it maybe sounds like Tanzania was kind of the same to a degree.
Yeah, that's what I found too. And I think...
Sorry.
I think most of Southeast Asia on our travels was like that as well.
Like, I heard buses in Africa, and I definitely don't fact check this, but I was told the buses in Africa, even though if they have a departing time, say it's 5 p.m, they'll depart when the bus is full. So you might get to, you and I might get on the bus at 5 to 5 to make sure we're there early, but you might sit there till 6:30 until the bus is full, and then that's when they go.
Interesting.
That was one person's taking it. I don't know if that's actually
I can see how that makes sense, though. That's what most people. Yeah. I remember that being a fun little experience we had in Myanmar. There was this, I remember reading about, we went to this like really small little village up in a place called Seapore in the Shan State. We did a hike around there, but you can get this train back towards Pinulwin and towards Mandalay. And what was so unique about it is because when the British were there, in their old colonialism times, they put in a railway all around Myanmar, alternatively known as Burma. And then when the British left after World War II, and Myanmar had its independence, they decided to use Chinese gauge trains. So basically they were too narrow for the train lines. So these trains would go maybe a maximum of 15, 20 mile an hour because they would sway.
Okay.
So for some strange reason, the government that came were like, no, we're using these trains from China. We're not using the British gauge ones. Instead of ripping up the whole gauges of the train lines, they were just going to use those. So I was like, this looks great. And mainly wanted to go because you went over this like viaduct, like you're like thousands of feet in the air. You have this awesome view down the valley. At that point, you're going at like 3 miles an hour.
Okay.
Like you're not doing that sway. But I remember then I remember that one. You're just saying about how it's sort of a bit slower paced. I remember we went to catch the train on one of the days, and we were talking we're getting our ticket, the whole ATP it cost for first class. And they were saying, just so you know, the train didn't arrive yesterday. It was just like, forget about like half an hour or something. It just didn't arrive. And apparently that's not uncommon because of the swaying, apparently derailing happens quite often.
Oh my God.
So we're like, okay, well, we won't hold our breath. And it was kind of one of those where we needed to get money out. We couldn't get money out of the bank because the whole Wi-Fi in the town was down. So I was like, well, I can't now get any money to it. It's obviously a place where card was not taken at all. It's all cash. I was just like, shit, what are we doing? Anyway, the train did end up arriving only like an hour and a half late. But it was just kind of trying to sort of find that side of things about how it just kind of works on a different time zone. So I got my fun experience on this really random train. We went, like I said, like 150 kilometers or something, and it took like 8 hours. But it was just kind of what you experienced along the way, the kind of views of it all. And then we basically took a taxi to the big city. And it took less time to do that than it did the whole
trip.
The whole trip to go further. But that whole how slow pace of life, that was just one of the experiences I remember having from it, where you're just like, it's going to happen. We're just kind of people just accepting it. And if your train's not arriving that day, it'll hopefully arrive tomorrow at some point.
Yeah, I know. About you describing like the train going slowly over the viaduct, I was like picturing in my head, I was like, that sounds amazing. Like the irony of, not the irony, but if you're looking for like the super positive lining of it going so slow because the trains might fall off, is that you get such a long time to really appreciate what's the view around you.
Exactly. And it was cool. Yeah. And like the reason we went up this really doesn't help this gives you way more of a view in like my risk profile side of things. Like, so where we went in Myanmar, not very well traveled at that point, or in general. And I found out in my deep dive of research, you could get to this area, like say the Shan State. If you looked on the UK government, they do travel advisories. This was like red, but you could get there. And it just started. I found this like really tiny guiding company that just started out of there wanting to welcome people in there. And they were taking people to like the villages, right into the mountains, experiencing like a cultural side and seeing like the views, and then like come back out. And I was like, I reckon we can make this work. So I was just intrigued in that respect. So we went and did that, and so that was when there was still like a civil war going on.
I was going to ask why it was red.
Yeah, there was, and depending on who you talk to when they sort of about it all, but basically, that's the Golden Triangle, right? Opioid kind of area. And
you're like, let's go there.
Yeah. And we were there, and I remember we walked through this. We were on the first day hike. We did these homestays. It was phenomenal. And our guide was like, "Oh yeah, this is like my village, which is like 20 miles away at the moment." And there was like a full-on gun battle going on between the military and then the rebels. And we were just like, oh. And then the next day we walked through this village, and there was a guy just casually with an AK over his shoulder chatting to the guide. I was just like, wouldn't have expected this. But again, that's like, it's a completely different, like what we experience in our everyday lives just shows you there's a complete opposite going on in the world around us that we may not know about. Mm-hmm. And how then grateful or aware or kind of however you want to view it, it makes you of like how big the world is, right? And nowhere's without its problems and how it's being dealt with and things like that. And then we were sort of chatting, and then our guy was like translating. He was like, and he was saying like, we're not the problem. Us kind of group of 6 or 8 Westerners, foreigners exploring these. He was like, I haven't got a problem with you. No problems at all. He said like, it was like, I want to welcome you in. We want this to be a place where you can feel safe and explore here. But it was just this whole rebels versus government side of thing. But that's a whole other side of things apparently. But it was just so weird that this guy was just like, yeah, we love that you've come here kind of thing. And then just like, see you later. Thanks guys. Okay. Yeah. And I'm like, is that guy going to still be alive tomorrow? Just like, well, and he's like, oh, he's like a good friend of his. Oh, it's just so much was going on. And you're like, this is wild. Yeah. This is completely wild.
Yeah.
And Bobby's just like, and I'm like, it's fine. We're fine. Don't worry about it. We are fine. We're not the enemy here.
So this is something I always want to ask you about, which was your philosophy and fear. Now it maybe sounds like quite a deep question to ask, but even before, all those kind of, even that story you were telling specifically just there and previous, just going to Kilimanjaro and Nepal and stuff like that, I think my experiences of all them, obviously I didn't do the thing you literally just talked about, but was kind of being quite fearful of it and just doing it anyway. And I know you and I have chatted about it, and my question was, like, do you have a philosophy and fear and not letting it hold you back from what you want to do?
I would love for there to be a very simple answer for that, and also a consistent one. But as we've kind of touched base on, and I think we're both in understanding of this, there are like, when you talk about fear, you talk about this kind of these anxious moments, it's not necessarily one big thing. It's macro things, micro things that can kind of create it. And I still think it works in that respect. I try and keep myself grounded. I try not to approach it with an overconfidence, because it would be an overconfidence with an incompetence, which is the worst kind of mixture you can possibly have, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. That's where the risk goes up, but the consequence goes up too. because maybe you're not thinking it through enough. But yeah, it was, again, it was kind of approached through, and it's changed over the time. And as you probably would attest to as well, like as you do gain more life experience or get a bit older, and it's been known as studies into your risk profile naturally kind of shrinks a little bit. But I remember there being one particular, there were probably a couple of different factors within that. One was I don't like the water, but I do like the water. Like I was never a particularly strong swimmer. So if there was a fear of anything, I have a fear of drowning. Quite a strong fear. So much so that even now, I have to kind of psych myself with it to be in. And like, it would be to that point where if I couldn't touch the ground in the water, I would panic. So that's the strongest ever fear or failure is. And it's still, sometimes it's today I'm a bit better. I have got better. But if I couldn't touch the ground in the water, I would just panic and need to get back to it. What kind of helped was, it was literally right when Bobby and I started to go traveling. She's a water baby through and through. And she had always wanted to learn to scuba dive. She'd done it once with her uncle. And I looked at it like, scuba dive, you fucking crazy. I'm like, that's prime, I'm going to drown kind of moment. So yeah, we're going back 10 years here, 9 years. But I was like, no, hold on. This is an opportunity again to see how I deal with it, to test myself, to challenge myself with something that I feel quite uncomfortable with. And, if there was a good time to do it, now is kind of a good time to do that. I was like, it would be really cool, to be able to do this, all these things with the diving and all that you can see there and just experience itself, that feeling of weightlessness. So I was like, okay, we'll give this a go. So I remember as a birthday present, I booked for us both to do our PADI, or it wasn't PADI, it was the other SSI.
Yeah.
Scuba diving in Thailand and Koh Tao. That would be within the first few weeks. We went up to Chiang Mai, up to Pai, came back down, went straight to learn how to scuba dive. So that then the plan was we can then do that throughout our travels around Southeast Asia, which we did. But I remember looking, I was like, okay, this is going to be, it's going to be a challenge, but we want to do it. I want to do it. So I remember we started off in the pool first time. And we're just getting comfortable. The first thing it says, okay, right, what you need to do is you need to be able to stay afloat for 10 minutes, tread water as a test. Have you done any diving?
I have done it, yeah.
Okay. So have you done the qualifications?
I did the full dive master, yeah.
Oh, you did the full dive master?
Yeah.
I'd love to know more about that.
So the reason my face was a little bit curious there was because I thought I remember doing that 10-minute thing, but it was way further down the line of.
No, we had to do it straight off the bat.
Oh,
literally before we even got into the seat.
Wow, that's mad. Because we not to take over your story, but I was below an instructor, so
Gotcha.
I would just help an instructor on days, and we never did that. We had to do that when we were learning, but as part of the kind of second to last step of being a dive master was you had to do the rescue course, and on the rescue course you had to tread water. For some reason I thought it was 12 minutes. But for you to have to do that, straight off the bat, these people sound like they're really thorough, to be fair.
Yeah, and take nothing away, the instructor that we had was phenomenal. His name was Neil, and he was from Derby, and he'd been in Thailand for 15 years, and he was about 5 foot tall and bald. He was a great laugh. But he was very, very good. He was the reason why I kept going with it. Anyway, we were in the pool, and it was right, tread water for 10 minutes. So I remember lasting about 45 seconds. I was just that whole idea, because I never felt comfortable with it. So I was just exhausting myself, trying to tread water. I never knew the proper technique. So then that freaked me out. And he's like, it's okay. We can revisit this later. So it's okay. Right. We've just done that. And then we moved on to, as I'm sure you then start talking about the equipment, the regulator, how everything works. And then he's like, okay, whenever you're ready, just practice breathing with the regulator above the water. And you're like, okay, just getting comfortable. Okay. And then he said, right, whenever you're ready, just, put your face under. Don't fully put your head under, just cover it. And I remember doing that, being, okay, this makes sense. I'm breathing through this regulator. You trust the equipment. I remember just kind of putting my head under, and then that kind of like breathe in where you feel like you should be holding your breath. And I was like, oh, this is going to be hard. Cause I knew like straight away I just retreated. I was like, this idea being my head underwater, my face underwater, it just was like, if there's like a reflex, like your fight or flight reflex, that was what felt like at that point, my body going, nope, absolutely not. So I knew I was in for a bit of a fight and a bit of a tough time straight off the bat. And again, he was just like, look, there's no time constraint on this. So I remember us doing that, first of all, starting to get a little bit more comfortable. And then he took me to one side after. He's like, look, if you're happy to, it can just be you, me, and Bobby, but we'll do it a day later than everyone else. So he's like, if you're happy to just take a day, I can then give you a bit more one-on-one time and we can go through it. He's like, doesn't matter. So I kind of took that on board. I felt bad because Bobby, again, she's a fish in water. So she's like, la, 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 la. So I was like, yeah, if you want to do this, you just, no, we'll do that. So I was like, okay. So that was a interesting one. To kind of go through, and obviously again, irrational versus rational side of things and trusting the equipment was the biggest part. But then I remember having this kind of moment where I was like, you're right, I have to trust the equipment. Then it felt a lot more comfortable. And then we went and did the dives and then started to feel more comfortable, and end up passing. But towards the end of it, it's like, right, we still need to do your 10-minute float. He said, but what we're going to do it in the sea instead. It's more buoyant. You've got the salt. It's more what you'll expect. He said, instead of treading water, just lie on your back, float. Mm-hmm. That's all you need to do. Whereas in my head, I was like, tread water, shit, I need to, flap around. He's like, no, he said, the idea is that if you should be in a situation where you need to stay above water for that period of time, we want to find a way that you can do it. And he said, the easiest thing to do, get on your back and just do that, breathing that sharp breath in and very little breathe out. And I remember there just kind of like, okay, this makes way more sense. And then before I knew it, 10 minutes was up. He's like, and that was it. So that really helped instill more confidence into me in the water. And then after that, I just went hard with it. Like, I ended up doing my advanced. I absolutely loved it. Bobby then kind of went the other way. Like, we had this really bad dive where it was probably, 5 meters visibility. There was a storm that come in. It was storm swell. It was really poor visibility. And I think she got like kicked in the head by someone above when you were kind of descending on the line. And that really shook her. Yet she goes the other way and goes, oh, you know what? I don't like the scuba diving side of things. So she's going to free dive.
Oh, wow.
So her fun little thing is she free dived. Yeah. Free dived?
Free dived, maybe.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Rather free dove.
Yeah. That doesn't make sense. Not an English teacher, but free dived. Yeah.
Yes, free dived. Deeper than she scuba dived.
Wow. Do you know how deep?
Yeah. So she went to 20, and obviously SSI and Paddy is only to 18, 17. So I was just, that to me was even more nuts than not having a regulator going down, but you're happy to just hold your breath.
I know.
But that was wild. But yeah, I ended up loving it, doing the advanced. We then did like so many more dives on our trip, but we got her confidence back with it. We did like drift dives. We did wreck dives in Bali. It was so cool. But yeah, it was that challenge in the beginning to kind of like flip that switch off of like knowing that you have control over how you can deal with the situation compared to that initial flight response was like a key thing to battle with. It's definitely like the control side I found, where you're like, okay, you have to talk yourself like, no, I can't breathe. I trust equipment. You've just got to get comfortable doing it. So that was one of the, I guess, approaches, if that kind of answers the initial question of how kind of came about it. I do quite like to do it head on. Mm-hmm.
So you'll feel the fear, but you kind of do it anyway.
Yeah, I think part of it is the fear for me.
Yeah.
I think part of it is...
Is it because then when you achieve it, it's even more gratifying because you were so terrified of it to begin with?
I think there's
terrified might be too extreme, but...
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, I was definitely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think it's just the feeling. Like, I remember going back again to our travels side of things, and there was one of the books that you have on your website that you put on your blog. I haven't read it, but it made me sort of go down that way. It was the Something of Happiness. It looked
The Pursuit of Happiness.
Yeah, and it looked like it was some teachings through Buddhism is what it covers. And I remember we were in Chiang Mai, and they do this program up there where you can go into some of the local monasteries, and to help with the monks' English, you can go in and just chat to them.
Wow, that's very cool.
Really, really cool. Again, can't remember how I found out about it, but so we went in one evening and we were chatting to this really, really young, either monk to be. He must have not been any more than like 18, 19, 20 years old. And we just chatted everything from philosophy to like what Buddhism and that side of thing means to him. Like, I'm not a religious person in any way, but I'm a curious person. Mm-hmm. So, and I remember there being one thing that he mentioned within that was like, and again, could be wrong, but like the initial teachings of Buddhism,
the Buddha,
being that the idea to experience, like, you don't truly know how someone else feels unless you've experienced it. So the idea of experiencing everything so that you know then how other people feel. You know, like, you only know how someone who is rich feels if you are rich, and poor, so on and so forth. And it kind of was like a side of things. So I was like, okay, well, maybe, and it appealed more to that kind of side of me, of maybe more curious, which was good, but also that like embracing or like understanding the why you're afraid of something, like the fear of, like, you know, what is it? And is it something that you can just kind of sit with and then work with, rather than being like, I know I'm going to have to go through it and then the gratification after. It's more of I want to know what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of, how does it feel to go through it? How am I going to react? How do I control the fear that I will feel, or the uncomfortableness that I will feel? And how do I then keep myself in check whilst going through it, and keeping the logical part of my mind working when the completely illogical, irrational side wants to be firing on all cylinders, going left, right, and center, and just being like, danger, when potentially it's something that actually the danger is quite small, because you're doing it in a controlled environment that allows it to be safe, but it's just because you're not exposed to it, you naturally have this fear of it. That's kind of how that kind of works for me, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I heard this quote that said, it's about a guy, Alex Hormozy. I actually wrote it down so I didn't butcher it.
Oh, nice.
And this is kind of where the idea of this kind of question came to me, because you and I have kind of chatted about it, and obviously everything you were saying there, where you still have that fear, but you're willing to kind of accept it and step into it and see how you fare within it. But I read this thing, and he said he had this quote, he's got many quotes, but this quote was, what would you do if you weren't afraid?
Yeah.
And I always ask myself that, because if the answer is doing the thing, then I will do it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if I wasn't afraid, what would I do? And usually it's the go scuba diving or the thing like that. And I just think, we'll do it then, and just deal with and I think maybe as I get older and have had really similar experiences to you, like with scuba diving and learning lessons within that about being afraid of different situations within it, and just getting past it and be like, okay, I was able to do that thing. So the next thing, while scary, it's also, I've had the previous experience of being scared, pursuing it, realizing what you were saying about the like kind of logical and illogical, and trying to get the logical part of your brain to work a bit more. And I think the more you do it, the more
you're training it, right?
Yeah. And I think I thought something, but it literally just escaped my memory, so I'll move on. No, but I think it was what it was as someone who, and I'm talking about me, by the way, not you, as someone who is a serial doomsdayer.
Oh, don't don't be silly.
I know, I'm actually not that bad now, but I was when I was younger.
Yeah. Okay.
I was very much a doomsday or hypochondriac when I was younger. Now I would honestly say I'm not. But I'm not because none of the worst case scenarios ever happened. And the more I started to actually think about that and realize it makes it easier that when I'm then procrastinating about the next doomsday scenario, i.e. like not being able to touch the water. I'm the same as you, by the way. Like I've done a lot of swimming, but to like give kudos to this whole conversation because I have, when I started, so I was trying to do this long distance swim.
Yeah.
Which I could have seen the bottom. I hated the idea of not being able to see the bottom.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
Yeah, that terrified me.
I think it's both together.
Yeah. Because I would, like, again, logical and illogical minds, I would honestly think to myself, yeah, there's monsters down there though.
Oh yeah, it's the fear of the unknown, right?
Yeah. So I was the same as you, and I absolutely was terrified. I remember the first time I did just a triathlon. I was swimming along the loch in Scotland. I think it was actually Loch Lomond, coincidentally. Nice. But anyway, it was so shallow that I could have stood and been like in neck high water.
Oh wow, okay.
But dude, I was terrified. Yeah. But I did that, and then I did a longer one and a deeper one, and then a deeper one again and a longer one again. And now you kind of look back and where you were terrified 10 years ago and be like, wow, that's not even really, I wouldn't even find that particularly that difficult. But I've had to go through all the fear and growth and fear and growth and fear and growth iterations to get to the point where I'm at now where I'm probably a bit more comfortable with it.
And I think that's an important part, right? The whole, life is learning and experiences, right? We can be learning things every day in micro doses, so to speak, and even learning like how you deal with certain aspects of it. And like you say, that fear side of things, though, it's nice to then be on the other side and then look back and be like, oh yeah, I remember I did that. And then you can get to dissecting it a little more and kind of like how you've then, like you say, grown from it. But then you can also go the other way of knowing what you've done before, but then maybe you have this bigger fear where even the experience of knowing what you've done before, for some reason, still cannot override the potential fear to do what it is that you then want to do. Like, that's where the illogical mind is then at the forefront for reason X, Y, or Z. Even though, and the experience, for some strange reason, is not strong enough to give you the confidence to know that you can do that thing again, irrespective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to jump in there and say I have that with flying. Like, I'm not a massive fan of flying. It's kind of how I now describe my feelings towards flying. But the irony is, I mean, I'm 32. I've flown a lot of times, but I still have like an anxiety with it. Now, I kind of know why that is because I have self-medicated my fear of flying with just getting a few pints in. So I think that I've never really, going to the total opposite of what we've kind of been chatting about, embracing the fear and growing from it, I've literally been plastered overing the fear of flying and never have actually grown into someone who is able to fly without an anxiety because I've not really embraced I've obviously been sober on flights. Yeah. But I'll be honest, since I've been 18, it's not been that many. So, that's one thing in my life where I definitely have not embraced the fear. And every time I say it to Cass, every time we go somewhere, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to drink in this flight. But then in my defense,
you're on holiday mode.
Yeah, holiday mode, genuinely. Like, so I get like 1 or 2 pints, and the issue is like 1 or 2 pints isn't the issue. Is once I then, more because you and I, because we're from the UK, like I would assume that you're doing like kind of long haul flights to the UK like every so often. Yeah. And it's on those long haul flights that if you're drinking for a 9-hour flight, like you get off in your... Anyway, that was a bit of a tangent there, but I think just put it the correct way, like when you just constantly expose yourself to the same fear over and over, eventually kind of, the more I have not made this up, there's a MMA fighter called Conor McGregor said that the more you seek the uncomfortable, the more you become comfortable. Yeah.
And I believe that. Like, I'm a 100%. Big believer in the exposure therapy side of things, of the more you expose yourself to said uncomfortable feeling, the more comfortable you'll feel within it. And obviously that is relative for everyone, different for everyone. So yeah, I'm a big believer in that. And like, that's where like, going back to that initial icebreaker that I asked about, my theory then going into that was, well, if the first time I go on a plane, I jump out of the plane, I can never be afraid of flying. That was genuinely how I went into it. And then since then, unfortunately, I'm the opposite of you. I fucking love flying.
Oh, do you?
I learned, I did like 6 or 7 hours learning to fly because I wanted to just feel the sensation being in control of an aeroplane in the air where you have this wide expanse with all this like independence within it and kind of what you see, like seeing the world from a different perspective, like on the top down. Yeah, that was it. That kind of like got a love coming out of it, which was not what I expected.
Well, I've thought about that in the sense of, I did the same as you, who went skydiving, and I did it because I was scared of flying. So I was like, if I jump out of a plane, I can't be scared of flying anymore. Yeah. And it didn't really help my fear, but it did kind of make me rationalize a bit better. I was like, well, I fucking jumped out of a plane. Like, I can sit in one for 4 hours to go to Greece or whatever. But I have not done it, but I have thought about what you said, which is, I think if I was actually to get flying lessons, even in like a little Cessna, like tiny little plane.
Oh, that's what I did mine.
I think it would make me calmer because I would actually understand the mechanics of it. I think it's because when I sit in a plane, I don't actually know what's going on. You know, whereas I think if I understood if I did it myself, granted not a Boeing 747, but I would be more comfortable to be like, okay, right, yeah, this is just the truth. And to be honest, I am actually I'm kind of over-egging it a little bit. I'm actually not that bad. I just, it's just something I need to get fucking rid of, but.
Yeah. Well, that's fair enough. Yeah. Bobby was similar. Like, she is not a fan of flying, and she even did one of the like fear of flying courses in the UK. And she found that very good, like, because then they literally took you through, the reason why this was done was because the wheels are coming down, and that they went very much with that kind of, this is what every sound is kind of thing.
Oh, maybe I should do that then.
Yeah, she found it really useful. At the time it was a BA, I think.
Okay, yeah.
I'm assuming they do something similar here. I know you can just go, you did like a kind of Zoom session the night before or so where they were talking about like how it would be and like these different parts and like giving the science and the facts about it all to just kind of make you comfortable. And then you'd sit on the plane for a bit and they'd go over like what these sounds are, literally what the process is from a pilot's perspective of what they're doing. She found it really good.
So I had the opposite experience when a company I worked for when I left school, it was an engineering company, and we made aircraft engine components.
Cool.
Now it was kind of everything. It was like washers, so tiny little things up to like crankshafts and stuff.
Yeah.
And anyway, so Rolls-Royce was one of the companies that we made parts for. So they would come in and give us a presentation, not annually, but it was kind of annually. Yeah. Every so often. But the point in the presentation was for them to emphasize how important our work was. So they literally would sit us in a room, boardroom usually, projector on, and they would show us, they wouldn't show us the actual disaster in motion, but it would be like, this was a plane crash and this happened because someone put through a bolt that wasn't properly inspected. Okay. And then this was a plane crash because the window came out because the screw had lost its thread. Right. And this was a plane. So, and the whole point of it though was to be like, so your job making these components is critical.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, it wasn't there to put the fear of death into us. And again, this is maybe saying more about me and my negative mentality, but I came out of it like, oh my God.
Don't want to cock up.
Yeah. But I do think, I think you're totally right. Obviously doing one of those courses, like my girlfriend Cass, she is terrified of flying. Yeah. We flew to San Francisco, which is only like a couple hours from here. She was reading a book, listening to a podcast and talking to me at the same time. That's how much she was trying to
distract herself.
Yeah, and I'm like 8 pints deep. So I'm like, I'm like looking out the window like, gosh, where the window, where high we are.
That's when you're real thick Scottish
accent
comes out, right?
Yeah. And she was just like, oh God, yeah. She was just like, don't talk to me. But I think if I can, I have another fear, which is kind of like a little bit of a sidestep from that. And I want to ask you about it. Because I think we're kind of similar ages. Yeah. Similar stages in life. I think sometimes when I overthink about it, I have a fear of time.
Yeah.
And I mean that in the sense of all the stuff that we've just chatted about.
Yeah.
Like, I want to do more of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes in my early 30s, which, I know is young, I can rationalize and say
30s are the new 20s, don't you know?
When you get to 30, you think that.
I'm nearly halfway through.
But I guess not all the time, because I can obviously rationalize it, but I do sometimes have a fear of feeling like I'm running out of time, which is so ridiculous to say at the age of 32. But I think it's more just because being at the age of 32 and there's natural conversations with regards to family, kids and stuff that I would like, and feeling like, oh yeah, but I want to get all this stuff done before then. Do you ever have like a fear? Do you think about that way, or are you a bit more chill about it?
It would be wrong to say I don't think about it. But also I'm very much of the belief that, and it was like instilled by my mum. My mum's like, you are you do what you want to do. You don't let anyone else dictate what you want to do. You do it for the reasons that you believe you want to do them for. And in kind of that respect, I'm like, you know what? I do have friends that, back in the UK that are married or they have kids and everything like that. But I like to think I've surrounded myself with the right people that are also like, your life is the life that you live. Their life is the life that they live, and all you can do is support each other. So yeah, it's always one of those things where you kind of think of what life is like when the shoe's on the other foot. So I remember sometimes going home or talking to friends before Bobby and I either went traveling or came out to move out to Canada, and some would go, oh, I wish I could do what you could do. And that's an interesting, in my way, an interesting comment to make, but also can be a lot deeper and trying to circumnavigate it without sounding like privileged and with the opportunity. It comes down to, in my opinion, to strip it, like they have decided that they want to buy a house there, and that's how they want to live. Whereas who's to say that at times when Bobby and I have been traveling or something, we haven't gone, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have settled down somewhere and have bought a house like others have? So I believe it's very much kind of like depends what it's like when the shoe's on the other foot. You always can sometimes be wanting for what I try not to, because, and I don't say that I do, but it's easy enough sometimes to be like, oh, this is how different it could have been if we did this. So it's just always interesting when I find people like, oh, I'm so jealous that you can do that. Or I'm like, well, don't be jealous. Jealous is a very strong word. You've decided what you want to do because of the people you are and how comfortable you feel, or you've done what you want to do for a reason, and own that, and we're doing the same. Like, we don't feel like we want to do what you want to do, which is still okay. We're just living the life that we want to live. And all we're asked for is a bit of support with it. Mm-hmm. But like I said, we're very lucky to be able to surround ourselves with people like that. So it's kind of one of those. And yeah, sometimes you can look back on time, and there was something more deeper and kind of more recent times that definitely probably was more of a, let's say, a kick up the bum, or more of another moment that kind of made that sphere of understanding or kind of grow, was when, I can't remember if I told you or anything. So my mum got married, or remarried, to my stepdad, so to speak, David. And then a year after, or maybe even less than a year, let's go 6 to 9 months, 9 months after they got married, we found out that he had motor neurone disease. If you're aware what motor neurone disease is.
So
that's without me not, I don't know if you know.
I do, but it's like, just tell me.
Yeah. So it's basically when all of your motor neurons, your functionality just breaks down, deteriorates. Think muscles, think heart, think lungs, think anything muscular that has a motor neuron. It just basically starts to die. And it is exceptionally rare. Like I think it was there was a documentary on it about Bobby Burrows, the rugby player. Yeah, because he had it, and he's been a huge advocate for it, trying to raise money for it because it's not curable. And like it's maybe like 1,000 people a year worldwide, almost. So I get it. So you're like, the percentages of it is so ridiculously low. And we found he had it, and this was just before Bobby and I were going to go and do our South America travels. And I remember my mum, like, literally a day or two before, just going like, I'm telling you now, because you're going to find out one way or another, but David has it. You are still going to go on this trip. I will be fine. And I was just like, you then have that, you never want to see a family member upset. Right. So then I've just then retreated to this, like, well, I don't want to go anywhere now. I want to help support you and help support what you're doing for David. She's like, absolutely not. You're still going to go traveling. You're still going to enjoy yourself. So I was like, okay, fine. So that I say fine, like we weren't excited, but we are. But, there was this big cloud that was like festering there. So we went, that's when we actually first came to Canada to spend a month coming around here and then going down to South America at that time. And it was kind of one of those lingering things when we were on our travels that I'm just constantly like, I should be helping. Like, I'm not helping here. Like, I'm not supporting here. But then I knew if I went back, my mum would be like, what are you doing? This is not what you're supposed to do. But so we did end up going back after 3 months, probably a bit part cut short because I just couldn't get over this feeling of like, I needed to be there to help. So then went sort of moved back in with them to try and help. But they bought an RV. They went traveling around the UK, spent a lot of time in Scotland because his family was like Scottish initially. So they went all around these Talbot like areas, to find his like long lost family members. So they were in the RV for like 3-4 weeks at a time. My mum was driving. They had the dogs. So they were creating these experiences. Even though he knew that he was going to die. And like, I still can't to this day fathom, I hope nobody gets to like be at a point where your body is degrading and you're going to die, but you can't do anything about it. And this is a guy who, he has climbed Mont Blanc. He has climbed the Matterhorn. I remember talking to him about it, his journey. He climbed with his mates when he was like in his 30s, and then he was running down the Matterhorn with one crampon because the other one flew off or something. And he has he's done all this sailing. He's done all these like a fit guy, and like he gets this entirely degenerative disease that cannot be cured, that makes no sense at all because of like a chromosome or because of something. And we could then just see him deteriorate. Unfortunately with him, it attacked his throat first, which is obviously pretty bad. Airways, things like that. Like his voice was going, this all happened within like a year. You just saw this kind of drop, and they were trying to record his voice so he could use a machine to communicate, but it still be his own voice. So they were recording that, and then it was just one of those things. It just felt every time I came back, it was he was being able to talk less. He would be skinnier. He was having to be fed by a tube. It was all like mush because obviously his throat wasn't working to break it down. So that whole strange experience that I definitely felt like I was like looking at it from like a third person view outside of myself as well. And especially when it's happening to someone like who my mum was planning to spend the rest of her life with, and you just feel helpless about it. And you're kind of like, well, what do I do? What can I do? And there's nothing you can do. And then it came from like, you know, like you can only control what you can control. So you try and control those things to the best of your ability, to the best that you can. But it's still, no matter what, there's this complete and utter unknown element at any point that with a click of a fingers can just rear its head. So I think there was a bit of a shift in when all of that happened, of this inevitability of there are things out of your control and you have to accept it. Because you can't fight with something that you can't control. It's a waste of energy. It's a waste of time, in my opinion. But then what I deem is not controllable, someone might be able to come from a different perspective and be like, oh yeah, this could be controllable. But in that respect, definitely not controllable. So that was definitely, an experience that I would never want. And I'm not wanting to this. I'm only telling the story. This, you know, I cannot speak for how like his kids would have felt, or for how my mum would have felt. You know, it's like 6 years on now. But seeing it from the outside, even though whilst connected with it too, you're just kind of like, well, I don't know what to do. And then you're also like, am I doing enough to, you know, make him feel like he's being heard as someone, even though he fully knows that he will die and that he is deteriorating, not being able to do what he was going to do. So that was a weird one. And I remember, because he was having those issues, and then I remember he had a stroke, which makes sense. He then went to the hospice, and I remember driving down. It was like 4 days before Christmas, driving down to my dad's to see my sister's birthday. And I remember being like 5 minutes away, and Bobby and I were in the car, and there was this phone call from mum, and I'm just like, you know, when you get that feeling where you're like, isn't it? And it's just, she's like, really sorry to let you know, but David's just passed away. So I'm just like, fuck. So I kind of go, and there's this like happy moment because it's my sister's birthday as she was turning, hold on, where are we at now? She was probably in like 13, I think. 13 or 14. And I kind of had to go in, and I was just like, and I say to my dad and my second youngest sister, I'm like, look, this is what's just happened. I've got to go home. I've got to drive an hour and a half back home. I can't in good conscience be here. And they were like, absolutely, we will let Rose know. So I was there for like 15 minutes, then just kind of drove straight home. And you're just like, I don't know. And I remember talking to my mum about it, and she put it very prophetically, and kind of how she described it, which maybe you don't want to hear. If you don't, that's okay. But like she said the moment was like as nice as it could be. Like he was there, his childhood friend and wife came in, that he'd known for, you know, let's say 50 years. And then he had another stroke and just went. And my mum was like, I know he's now at peace and he's not suffering anymore. Because that's literally what it was, just a suffer fest, right? It was, and yeah, as you sort of got down it, you kind of saw it, you know, no matter how mentally strong I feel you are, and you can be super, super, and I have such inspiration from those that are able, but you can never truly understand it. But like you saw this kind of switch where he was like almost being defeated by it, which is completely fair. Like, you know, and your heart sinks when you kind of see that. So it was kind of, yeah, I just remember that. And it was like, but my mum was like, look, he's at peace now. I know that he's not suffering. He went in the best way possible, that it was just like that. And he doesn't have to suffer anymore about it. Cause yeah, you know, she was seeing firsthand, you know, she was putting on the best face she could possibly put on to like make sure his last months were filled with joy and experience. And, you know, because we don't necessarily know depending on your belief systems, what happens when you do die. So I guess coming back to the initial part of that was that whole idea of the controllables and we can't control and can control, and that kind of helped me with this acceptance of things of, we're going to die at some point. Whether you go on the belief of your actions determine it, or the whole fate side of things determine it, or everything in between, or if you believe that your time is at a certain time, which is another philosophical kind of thing to digress through. But yeah, it just kind of made me think of things a little bit differently, and that I'm going to die at some point. So what do I have to be afraid of if it's within my controllables? And if it's a rational fear, to rationalize the fear, and then, if it's going to kill me, it's going to kill me to a degree, but not that, it's not in a irresponsible way, if that makes sense. I don't want it to be like, oh, I'm just going to do it anyway. I'm far too analytical for that. But I feel that's where I find the good balance of it, where I can still analyze it the right way, but also bring it back to within that sweet spot. Not always, I've got things wrong like anyone else. We make mistakes, and I'm absolutely not perfect at anything or all of this. It's just how I feel those experiences have shaped the way I view it, and just kind of looking at it that way and trying to kind of detach or understand why the fear's there, and if it's actually something where I'm going to be in danger, or if it's actually something that I'm like, oh, okay, I just need to understand it and then use it as the challenge and then kind of go through it. If you were able to piece any of all that.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. Together. I think I was thinking that you're almost saying, so my question was, being like fearful of the future and growing old and stuff like that. And
Sorry, yeah. No. I meant to then finish by saying, am I fearful of time? That made me look at the time very differently, because you don't know what's going to be around the corner for it. Doesn't mean every day I'm like, yeah, I'm going to live in the moment and make the most of it. I can't. It's exhausting. That
was going to be my point, that you kind of answered the question, which was that in that story and what you just said there, where you really don't know your time, as in how much time you have and how much and how your life is going to pan out. So enjoy the present and don't get so bogged down with the fear of what you can't control, which is the future and what may happen in the future. You can only control your reaction to what happens. So no, I definitely think you did answer that.
It's worth saying, I still find that very difficult.
Oh yeah,
to live in the present. Like, I'm very much, because of the analytical nature of myself, I'm thinking about the step after the next step after the next step. So to then bring it back in the present, I still find tricky.
I sometimes find that my memory of an event or a place is almost more enjoyable than my present experience of it, because when I'm in the experience of it, I'm doing exactly what you're doing, where I'm thinking of I'm making such a silly example here, but Cass and I are out for dinner, which is nice, but I'm thinking, okay, but when I get home, we need to do X, Y, and Z, or tomorrow I need to wake up and do this. And then tomorrow I'll so I'm kind of like disengaged from the present, and then tomorrow I wake up and I'm like, oh, last night was now that I think about it, it was actually really relaxing, but it wasn't really relaxing when I was in it, because I was thinking of the next 1, 2, 3 steps.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something that through the travels and just in life, I have tried to instill. I don't want to spend my whole life where my memory of a place is better than what it really was. Not better than what it really was, but I enjoy the memory of it more than the present moment. I think it's quite hard. Personally, for me, I am one of these people where I have actively tried to get more comfortable with just like slowing right down.
Me
but
too.
I think I naturally, and this isn't me being like, I'm like a busybody and I'm constantly one, but I think my brain, and maybe it's just I mean, I was going to say society, but that's probably too big a broad stroke of the brush. So maybe it's just my mind is more comfortable with movement as opposed to sitting still, because when you're sitting still, I guess, there's more opportunities for things to pop up, like
I agree.
stuff. Yeah. Whereas if I'm busy, it's kind of like you're kind of distracted. But anyway, what I am trying to do is before we did this podcast, I did like a 15-minute meditation just to try and I do it quite a lot, to be honest. It's not like a new thing. I've been doing it for years. Yeah. But just to instill within our modern world where your day is so chaotic, just having like 15 minutes to try. Now, it doesn't usually happen, but try not think about anything is honestly kind of peaceful.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I get what you mean. Like wanting to do something all the time and keeping yourself busy. But yeah, I mean, I started digressing on that again, sort of going back, that whilst there was that whole situation that happened, I still believe that coming out of it kind of helped me. Like, I don't think I necessarily would be in Banff if we didn't have that experience. Like, I remember in South America, like a big thing that was able to do there, which I'm not sure if that was like on the cusp before we were leaving, I would have done, was I climbed Huayna Potosi in Bolivia, which was a 6,088 meter mountain. I was like, oh, this was cool. I'd researched it. I ended up meeting someone out there as well and coaxing them to come with me, and like having that challenge as well was I don't think I would have done that as well if there wasn't this maybe potential realization of, okay, time is finite. It was just kind of like, thing, like I think it has then built on the experiences that I've had, maybe even interactions that I've had. Maybe it's made me more of a better person, especially like emotionally and conversely as well. Because I used to be, even within before that, I kept myself to myself, wasn't the most chatty person. I didn't necessarily always trust people too much. I was always like, people suck. But it kind of helped to be like, no, actually, there are ways you can kind of come out of it. And, I feel like I was a slow burner in life. Kind of one of those, like, it took experiences, sometimes not all of them the best, to kind of start chipping away at kind of the kind of person that you can become, or I am today, and learning from that experiences within it.
Yeah, I mean, just knowing you in recent years, it seems that you definitely have become someone who is a very positive person to be around, I also think where I realized that you're never going, or this is how I think, and it's not a unique thought I had, I heard this, where it is, you never are like the finished article. Because if you think you're the finished article, then usually you're not the kind of person who's going to like grow and be better. You're more like, I'm fucking sweet where I am.
I'm exactly where I am.
But having that realization that, even in 10 years' time, we'll no doubt look back on something I'm doing, or I even do it now. Like, I look back and when I first came to Banff like 5 years ago and just cringing at something that I may have done, and I'm like, oh God, I can't believe because even at that time, I remember thinking like how non-egotistical I was. And now when I look back at it, I'm like, I was way doing that because of my ego, so no doubt in 10 years' time, it's another thing, but.
Yeah. I mean, and Banff is an interesting place for that kind of
such a blend.
Such a blend, and with all the outdoor and extreme sports that you kind of exposed to, and all social medias, and all of people wanting to best other things, and like, it's an interesting, I guess, case study
to kind of live in.
To kind of live in, and then try and then look at it all from these different perspectives as well. And you only kind of get that when you're here. Like, I'm used to live in a small little town or village. My commute to Reading on the train that we packed. So that's kind of what I'm used to, instead of this like community of like 9,000 people or whatever, where you can go out every single time and you'll bump into someone that from one reason or another is just so different. So different.
Well, look, I appreciate you sitting down with me and being one of those people for me.
You. No, thank you.
Because honestly, I wanted to pick your brain. Because every time we don't see each other a ton, but every time I see you, it's always a very uplifting and positive experience. And the last time when we were kind of having a bit of those conversations about anxieties and fears and stuff like that, I was like, I need to ask Sam and pick his brain. So I appreciate you sitting down with me.
I appreciate you sharing it as well. You didn't have to, and I'm glad that I was able to be comfortable enough for you to be able to share it. So I hope you didn't feel pressured in any way as well.
Yeah. So thank you.
No, thank you.